Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The Game. Caroline Fenton is here. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, Jared. How are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Ian's here. Ian, how are you?
Just fine, thank you.
All right. Everybody having a good day. Caroline yesterday got her experience of the Mike Vrabel press conference, the first Mike Vrabel press conference she's ever had. And boy, I mean, we talked about it a lot yesterday, but that's what we do on this show.
Right.
I think everybody's talking about it. Gentry Estes wrote a column about it. I listened to Robbie and Rexro today, and that's all they were talking about was the Mike Vrabel press conference. I mean, the Mike Vrabel press conference was the press conference heard round the city. And not only that, but I think deep down inside it probably had some unintended consequences for Mike Vrabel. So I'm going to start with this. And let me state for the record, I am what you would call a first guesser. I am not just a second guesser. I mean, a lot of people, I think coaches and general managers and owners and players, and they're like, oh, yeah, those guys on the radio just get on there and second guess. So if they go for it on fourth down and it doesn't work, they'll sit there and they'll say, well, he's a dummy because it didn't work. But if it works, everyone will say it's great. And there's probably a lot of truth to that in this profession, in this sports profession. A lot of people like to wait. Adam Vingan and I got in an argument the other day. And I shouldn't say argument. It was a discussion. And I told Adam, I'm like, I'm a first guesser. I don't wait for when the coach has lost 8 in a row to sit there at the press conference and ask the guy, so you think you're going to get fired now? And you know, there's nothing against that. There's nothing against him doing that. There's nothing, I'm a first guesser. And sometimes that leads to everybody's favorite moments when I get something wrong and everybody likes to celebrate and everybody gets happy.
Yeah, to be fair, you did second guess yourself with Baylor last night.
I did second guess myself. But more importantly, my point about being a first guesser is this. Sometimes you say things that aren't popular. People get really mad because they think, oh my God, where is he coming with that? And that's where I'm going with this on Mike Vrabel. And that is, I wonder this question out loud. Is Mike Vrabel, and I don't know what the right word to say is. Arrogance, I guess, I don't know. I want to use a word that starts with A that you can't say on the radio, but it is in reality the way he treats the media, and I think sometimes the fans. This not wanting to talk about Shane Bowen thing. I think that's telling the fans, I'm doing what I'm going to do, and you're going to like it. And I'm not going to tell you why. And I wonder if that is going to put him on the hot seat. I know everybody thinks the idea of Mike Vrabel on the hot seat is ridiculous right now. That's crazy. Vrabel on the hot seat? And I'm not saying Vrabel is on the hot seat. I'm just saying the thing about this league, they call it the NFL, not for long. And these things happen faster than you think. Let's just use, I don't know, Bill O'Brien, a coach in the same division. Now, we all look now and say, hey, Bill O'Brien got way too power hungry. He kicked out the general manager. He screwed up their future with trading for picks or trading away picks. He traded away DeAndre Hopkins. He signed guys to crazy contracts. And so Bill O'Brien had to go. But were they saying that when they gave Bill O'Brien all that power in 2019? Were they saying that when he won another AFC South championship? 4 AFC South titles in 7 years for Bill O'Brien. And that includes the 0-4 start last year. So in 6 full seasons, Bill O'Brien won 4 division titles. They must have liked him enough to give him all that power. And then Bill O'Brien was a little too much to deal with. The players didn't like him. The organization didn't like him. The media didn't like him. And all of a sudden, after 4 games coming off of a division championship, Bill O'Brien is out. What about Doug Peterson? I mean, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. Literally won a Super Bowl. By the way, he won his division in 2019 too. So he's coming off of 5 seasons, 3 playoff appearances, 2 divisions, a Super Bowl, and he was fired last year after 1 bad year. Doug Marrone got to an AFC title game, the same thing that everybody would say if you were to stand behind Vrabel. And I think Vrabel's a good coach. But I think Vrabel needs an attitude adjustment. I know in sports, every coach, every general manager, every player will tell you, hey, if you win, nobody cares. And Bill Belichick is walking proof of that. Hey, if you win, you can treat the media however you want to treat the media. But I will just say this. Mike Vrabel does not have the resume of Bill Belichick. He does not have the resume of Urban Meyer. And it feels to me like sometimes he goes into these press conferences and he acts like he does. He acts like if Mike Vrabel said it, we should just say, you're right, coach, and we should just take it and listen and move on. What's he done? He got to one AFC championship game. So did Doug Marrone. So did Chuck Pagano, and those guys are out. He won a division title. Again, Bill O'Brien's won 4, and he's out. Dan Quinn went to the Super Bowl. Out. Even the guy he replaced, Mike Mularkey, gave the Titans their first playoff win in 14 years. He took the worst team in the NFL, made them 9-7, got to the playoffs, beat Kansas City in Kansas City, and got fired. These things happen quick in this league. You have one bad season, and Vrabel is putting it all on himself and Shane Bowen. I heard David Beauclair, longtime Nashville sports guy. You all know him very well. I heard David Beauclair on Robbie and Rex Road today, and he was talking about Vrabel put all the pressure on Shane Bowen. Did he? Or did he put it on Mike Vrabel? Because if they don't win, help me out here, guys. If the defense is a train wreck this year, people are going to point the finger at Mike Vrabel. And let's not forget what Wesley Woodyard said, which I regrettably did not ask Vrabel about yesterday. Let's not forget what Wesley Woodyard said on Darren Donick Chase a month ago about the way people in the organization feel about Mike Vrabel. It's not just the media. I've got people saying, well, the media did a bad job yesterday. Okay. This is what Wesley Woodyard said, a player, a captain, when Mike Vrabel was the coach. Take a listen.
Nobody knew who to look to talk to get those answers. Everybody had to go back to Vrabel. Who's the defensive coordinator? Who's doing this? Is it Shane? Is it Coach Vrabel? Is it who? So there's no identity going to be formed when there's that lack of accountability going throughout the building.
Lack of accountability. And the more you lose, the more it's easy to speak up about those things. When your coach wins a lot, it's very, very easy to gloss over everything he does. Bill Belichick treats the media poorly, doesn't want to answer questions, everybody laughs. Is Bill a jerk? Hey, Bill wins. Tom Brady leaves. Is Bill a jerk? Yeah, let's talk about it a little bit more. Mike Vrabel better be careful. I'm not saying Mike's on the hot seat. I'm not saying Mike deserves to be on the hot seat. I'm just being honest. I am a first guesser. And my first guess today is if Vrabel doesn't have an attitude adjustment and things don't go his way perfectly, I think the fan base is going to turn on him. And that's really what matters. I think it's the fan base. I have a buddy who runs my gym. Great guy. We disagree on a lot of things. And today I said to him, I go, I think Vrabel, with his attitude, is putting himself on the hot seat. And my buddy looked at me and he goes, sometimes I just hate the media. The media asks these questions and the media, and he's entitled to that opinion. But I told him, I said, hey, if Shane Bowen and that defense stinks this year, you're going to be the first guy. The same fans today that heard that press conference and said, the media asked these questions, you're going to be the first guy to call this show, to tweet, to text, to go crazy saying, why did they bring Shane Bowen back? He was horrible last year. They spent all the money on Bud Dupree and Danico Autry and Janoris Jenkins, and they drafted whoever they drafted on defense, and this defense still stinks, and why did they bring him back? That anger is not going to the media. If the Titans get torched in week 2 by Gardner Minshew again, or Drew Lock, or Kirk Cousins, or all of these bum quarterbacks that just lit up the Titans last year, if that happens this year, the anger that the fans point to with the media is not going to be about the media anymore. Nobody is going to call on a Titans Monday after they get spanked and can't stop anybody and say, well, I think the problem is Joe Rexroad's question asking. No one's going to say that. They are going to point the finger at the coach. Just like in Houston, just like in Philadelphia, just like Chuck Pagano in Indianapolis, just like Mike Mularkey here when Terry Robisky's offense couldn't get a first down. That's just the facts. And so I'm not saying that being nice is going to help you keep your job. But Dan Quinn in Atlanta made the playoffs 2 times in 6 years. Now, I know he went to the Super Bowl, but he had an epic meltdown collapse. But they kept giving him chances in Atlanta. It's easier to give a nice guy chances. David Poyle gets chances here in Nashville. Barry Trotz got chances. Jeff Fisher got chances. The nice guy gets chances. Like, I'm trying to level with Mike Vrabel here. I'm not trying to sit there and say, hey, you're on the hot seat. You should be fired. How dare you? How could you talk to the media like this? You know me. I don't care. I'm trying to level with Mike Vrabel. That is, either you improve the attitude or you improve the defense. Now, most of us would prefer both. But if you don't improve the defense and you don't improve the attitude, I think you are putting yourself on the hot seat. Caroline, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to pose this question to you as well. Do you think that if Bill Belichick continues this same kind of pattern that we saw in 2020, if you want to say that if Cam Newton sucks so bad?
And he does.
Okay, all right, well, we'll agree to disagree on that one. Do you think that he may fall into the hot seat in the same kind of pattern that Vrabel is in?
I think Bill Belichick is in trouble if they stink this year, and especially if it's Cam. Because, the owner kind of put pressure on Belichick last week. Kraft did the interview and talked about all the money they've spent. I'll say this. Kraft picked Bill over Tom. He knows he picked Bill over Tom. And Tom just won the Super Bowl. So, yes, to answer your question, Caroline, Bill Belichick, who's got all the Super Bowls, all the rings, all the wins, 2 decades worth of success in the NFL. In the NFL, when you win, as Doug Peterson will show you, that doesn't last very long. That success is fleeting. Belichick had success for 20 years.
Right.
And now after 1 year, the owner is putting pressure on Belichick. They spent $250 million in guaranteed money in free agency. And if they're not good this year, yes. Yes. That's how this league works. That's the thing about this league. It's unfair sometimes. But at the same time, if Belichick was such a jerk and it ran Tom Brady off, and Tom Brady goes and wins Super Bowl somewhere else, and you can't go better than 7-9, doesn't that kind of paint the picture of what you are? I still think Bill's the greatest coach ever, but doesn't that kind of paint the picture of what you are, who you are? And I don't even think Belichick's at all a fair comparison for Vrabel, because at the end of the day, Belichick's a better coach than Vrabel. He's won more than Vrabel. He's done a whole lot more than Vrabel. What has Vrabel done? I get it. Vrabel doesn't want to answer questions about Shane Bowen. There's a nice way to not answer a question, too. And I'm not sitting here saying that I feel like Vrabel's mean to me. I could not care 1 iota. I'm just first guessing how all this goes. I'm not doing the Adam Vingan, waiting until they lose 4 in a row and then saying, oh, you worried you're going to get fired? I'm not doing that. Adam does that. That's, he's entitled to do that. That's the way I am a first guesser. The arrogance that Corey Curtis went bananas about in the offseason, I think it hurts you as a coach. I think it legitimately hurts you. If I was his doctor and I was giving him a physical and he said, hey, man, the amount of sodium that you eat is just way too much. The doctor is not trying to ruin your kidneys. The doctor is trying to tell you, hey, you got to cut back on sodium. That's what I'm saying with Vrabel. Dude, you got to stop being such a jerk. You got to bring it down a notch, especially if it's permeating into the building. Because you start losing, those players turn on you real quickly. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Here is the question to me. This is the question I'm starting off with today. And you can say no at all, but you think Mike Vrabel is putting himself on the hot seat with the way he's acting, especially about the Shane Bowen question? Do you think he is putting himself on the hot seat? Or do you think it just doesn't matter and you don't care what he says, and if he wins, you love him, and if he loses, he stinks? And then how will you feel if he loses this year? Because there's one other take I have about the whole Shane Bowen thing that I want to get to next, which I feel like is almost unspoken. So I'm going to speak it, and we're going to do that next. 615-737-1025. We're live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. Caroline Fenton is with us. Ian is with us. Trevor Maddich today. Hal Gill today. Big Preds game. We are loaded. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. We're streaming on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Periscope, Facebook, all of it. See you there. Whatever. Stillman, it's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Don't think we've talked to you since some of the coaching changes and so forth. I guess why make the decision this offseason to change Shane Bowen's title? And aside from his, not handling outside linebackers, how will his role be different this year?
Shane will be the defensive coordinator. Todd will be the offensive coordinator. Craig Ackerman will be the special teams coordinator. He'll be assisted special teams by Matt Edwards. And then we've hired a few guys on offense and moved Ryan Crow to outside linebackers.
Right, but what's going to be different about Shane's role outside of the title?
Shane will be the defensive coordinator, and Todd will be the offensive coordinator, and Craig will coordinate the special teams again this year. John, I don't know, what the coordinators' jobs are to coordinate the coaching staff, each week, how we prepare with the certain elements of situations, first and second down, 11 personnel, 12 personnel. What do we want to carry over from our base? How much can we handle game plan wise? What we want to do on third down, short yardage. So none of that will change. Those operations and those mechanics won't change. Same offensively with Todd and how we do things, and he'll be helped by Keith and in the run game and Tony and all those guys on offense.
There you go. That was Vrabel yesterday. The first Shane Bowen question of, so what are the responsibilities going to be? Well, I don't know if you know what a coordinator does. I understand Mike Vrabel. I know Vrabel well enough. He's a smart ass. And I get it. That's fine. But man, does everything have to be like that? So there is kind of an unspoken thing here about the Titans defense that I don't think has really been addressed. And I'm going to pose the question around the room, if you guys are okay with that. Fair?
Fair.
I'm assuming Ian will say fair too. Do we think the Titans defense is going to be any good next year? Like Shane Bowen's defensive coordinator, everybody kept asking questions about Shane Bowen, and I thought they were right to do so. I thought John was right to ask about, the responsibilities because Vrabel wouldn't tell us that last year. I think Joe was right to follow up on it because Vrabel didn't answer it the first time, and I think I was right to ask the question. They're not the same questions. I asked the question about, what did he do last year to earn a promotion this year? If we're going to be everything is given all the time at once. They're different questions, but does any of us think, do any one of us think the Titans defense is going to be good next year with Shane Bowen running the defense? Caroline.
I think you have to think about all of the elements that are added to the Titans defense. You've got Bud Dupree. That's going to make a huge change. Just having some sort of edge rush present, I think, is going to change the defense. And if they're going to do what you and I both think they're going to do in the draft, which is invest in the defense and draft defensive players, then yes, I believe that it will be a step up from last year. In that same breath, your defense is only as good as the plays that are being called. But at least there is more talent, and I hope and I really think that it will be an improvement from last year just based off of talent alone.
Ian?
I kind of agree. I think it will be better, but I am not a believer in Vrabel's defensive scheme. I'll be honest. I don't think he has much of one, and I think it's just, and maybe that's the best way to do it is just get guys matched up one-on-one and for them to beat your guy. But if you don't have guys that can consistently do that, you're kind of just stuck ramming your head up against the wall.
If Dean Pease was back as defensive coordinator, how much better would you feel?
I would feel better.
See, that's the thing. And maybe we're all wrong. And there's a possibility that we are on the Bowen front. Maybe it was the fact that Beasley didn't love football and Clowney stunk and Jackson got hurt and Fulton got hurt. But I think there was I think it was obvious, a monumental drop from Dean Pease to whatever it was last year. And that's why if they had announced that Dean Pease was coming back as defensive coordinator, and Caroline, you're right, Bud Dupree, and I saw, an unnamed executive in The Athletic that was like, everybody thinks Bud Dupree is going to be what he was in his free agency year, and that's not normally how it works. So there should be at least a little skepticism there on Bud Dupree coming off of a torn ACL. But the personnel probably is going to be better on defense. Now, it's going to be worse on offense because it's going to be better on defense, and they had to, balance the pendulum. But it probably is going to be better on defense. but I still think I'm kind of with Ian. I mean, Vrabel was one of the worst defensive coordinators in the league. His defense was one of the worst in the league when he was the coordinator in Houston. There was the game a couple of years ago where Dean Pease had to go to the hospital in the middle of the game. Vrabel took over the play calling, and even though Mariota was awful that game, and they never had a chance against an Andrew Luck Colts team anyways, I mean, they couldn't stop anybody. And then last year, I mean, I think I've seen enough evidence to know that the way he's doing it, to me, I don't think it's going to work. And I think maybe that's why Vrabel doesn't want to comment on it too much, is because he knows that if I were to ask him, what did Shane Bowen do last year to earn this job? There probably isn't anything he can say that then isn't going to just get debated ad nauseum. Robinson said that they liked it because of continuity, and then we ripped on him for that. So I see both sides of it. I'm just saying, one, I don't feel like the defense is going to be better next year or better enough next year. And I think when it's not, the venom from the fans is going right at the coach. I think it is going right at the coach. Not hey, maybe they need to change this, or maybe they need to change that, or I think it's turning right into the same people that love to text this show. What do you think now, Stillman? I think it's going right in, but even more angry of why do you love this guy so much? Just like it was with David Poyle 3 weeks ago when they couldn't win a game.
You said you don't think the defense is going to be better enough. What exactly, in your eyes, is better enough for this Titans defense?
Like 15th. 15th in total defense.
Okay.
Don't let Gardner Minshew throw for 350 yards. Don't let Kirk Cousins have career days against you. I mean, I think that's not too much to ask. Like this year when you play Jameis Winston and the Saints, if Jameis Winston throws for 400 yards and no interceptions, I have a problem with that. It's one thing when you go to Green Bay on Sunday Night Football and you don't have a chance against Aaron in Green Bay. That's one thing. It's another thing when you play Lamar Jackson and the Ravens and Lamar's ripping off 70-yard runs against you. The one thing they can do that can beat you, the one thing you didn't let them do last year, and it happens.
Right.
When you can't get a sack. I mean, we go back to, I heard somebody say yesterday, I forget who. Somebody said, I think it was maybe Rexroad, Robbie, said the throw that Ryan Tannehill made to A.J. Brown in the Houston game at the end of the year that set up the Sam Sloman kick to win the AFC South. That was the best ball they have ever seen Ryan Tannehill throw. That may be true. It may not be. I'm not here to debate that. Do you remember offensively what the Texans did to the Titans that day? I mean, offensively, that was a terrible Texan team. And I know Deshaun Watson, we can all recognize the skills. He might be going to jail, but we can recognize the skills. But, I mean, they hung 30-something points on the Titans. The Texans had them beat. The Texans, one of the worst teams in the league, the third worst team in the league, had the Titans dead to rights twice, and Ryan Tannehill bailed them out of it both times. That's how bad that defense was last year. So when I say better enough, I mean, if the Texans start Tyrod Taylor at quarterback this year, the Titans need to win some football games. And they need to win them convincingly, and they need to get off the field on third down, and they need to get some sacks, and they need to get some interceptions, and they need to not just absolutely suck. So, do I think it'll be better? I mean, it can't be worse. But I keep asking this question. I ask, texters and callers this too, Do you really think Bowen's going to be better? Clearly, Vrabel thinks he's going to be better. But do you think he's going to be better? By the way, Corey Curtis texted me, and he said, what have I started? Going back to his rant about Vrabel's arrogance, and now here I am today. I mean, look, Mike Vrabel, I have a pretty good idea that that it got back what Corey Curtis said. I have a pretty good idea that what I've said today is going to get back to Mike Vrabel. And he needs to hear it. He needs to hear somebody say, hey, bring it down a notch. Bring it down. And, I want the Titans to win every game. You all know that. Season ticket holder, day one, went to the Super Bowl, 10 years old, cried when they lost. I want them to win every game. But trying to be real about the team right here, and I guess that's probably a little difficult for me. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We will. By the way, I have spoken to the unofficial, go ahead and underline that, bold it, the unofficial voice for Mike Vrabel, because there is an unofficial voice in this town for Mike Vrabel. And I spoke. This is not an off-the-record thing. This is not a anonymous source thing, other than I'm just not going to say who it is. And I asked him the same question I started with today, which is, could Vrabel's you-know-what-ness, could that ultimately lead to him putting himself in the hot seat? So I'll tell you what that person said, too. But we got your text. We got your calls, 615-737-1025. We're to those next. Stillman and Company right here on ESPN 1025 The Game. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. Add a little excitement to your sports watching experience by betting on all the action with the FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook and my #1 sportsbook. The app is simple to use. They've got great odds on all different betting markets, unique fun bet types like same-game parlays, exclusive always-on promotions such as enhanced odd boosts, the biggest events that will let you get more action out of every game day, and when you win, FanDuel will get you winning safely in as little as 24 hours. It's easy to use, easy to deposit, easy to find your bet. And again, when you win, FanDuel will get you that money very quickly. Just place your first bet on anything. FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back in site credit if your bet doesn't win. Place any bet you want. If you win, you keep the cash. If you lose, you'll get your entire bet up to $1,000 back in site credit. If you've never tried FanDuel Sportsbook, what are you waiting for? Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get started and be sure to sign up with the promo code JGM so they know that I sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code JGM. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires 14 days after receipt. Terms apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. For problem gambling support, call 1-800-889-9789.
Emily and I texted about it earlier today. I'm about done with Mike Vrabel's attitude. I just am. What were your takeaways from the head coach's comments today? We'll start with him, and then we'll go to the players.
You can't just say that and then move on.
Yeah, go ahead and ask me a question.
Elaborate. What?
Ask me. I look. Every time a question is asked, he acts like it's stupid, horrible, dumb, and he's really dismissive of all of them, like we're all beneath him. And I look. He hasn't won a Super Bowl. He hasn't been to a Super Bowl. If you're gonna act that way, win some games. All right, win some more games. Because I've got no time for it anymore. I'm done. I'm checked out. If you want respect, you got to show some respect. And I don't feel like Mike Vrabel's giving anybody any kind of respect whatsoever. I'm not asking for tears. I'm not asking for pity. I'm just saying I'm done with press conferences that are a waste of my time. That's what I've done.
Corey Curtis firing rocket shots after the end of the season press conference. And guess what? Vrabel doesn't care. I mean, if anything, Vrabel doubled down yesterday that, hey, I'm going to be the same guy I was. And that's okay. And I would agree with what Corey Curtis said. Go win some more games. Because, look, man, if Doug Peterson can get fired a couple years after winning a Super Bowl, I think anybody can get fired. Bill O'Brien, 4 AFC South championships in 7 seasons. Caroline, you're on the text line, which, of course, unless you've got a thought, text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What's the text line saying?
Shane from the text line says, I don't think he's put himself on the hot seat quite yet. The one thing you cannot argue is the success he has had and turned this team around. He gets the same feeling that you do, that he can be a jerk, but the thing that he remembers most is the interception against New England, him running onto the field, hyping up their players.
So when you say turn the team around, what do you mean by that? Because he inherited a 9-7 team, and then they went 9-7, and then they went 9-7. I mean, if anybody turned the team around, it was Mike Mularkey. I mean, I'm not saying Vrabel's done a bad job, but I think if we're going to sit there and say, hey, I remember how things were when they were winning. Well, okay. I remember when he didn't go for it on 4th and 2 last year against Baltimore. I would love to know what the locker room felt about that. What else is in the text?
Texter to the text line says, I personally feel like Robinson isn't 100% on the Bowen train, even though him and Mike said it's the players, not the coaching. If the defense still stinks this year, then they'll have to answer for it.
I would agree. I would agree that it was noticeable to me a month ago. John Robinson had a press conference, Caroline. He did not endorse the hiring of Shane Bowen. I mean, it wasn't anything about Shane. It was about continuity, and when asked what was wrong with the defense, it was, hey, there's a lot of, when the defense goes wrong, there's a lot of reasons why the defense went wrong. There wasn't any, hey, Shane has a great knack for calling the right play at the right time. We just didn't execute this year. There wasn't any of that. Mm-hmm. And I would agree. I don't think John Robinson's fully on board. I don't know this, so I don't feel comfortable saying it. But I don't feel bad hypothesizing that I wonder if last year there was sort of a finger-pointing going on between Vrabel and Robinson, which is Vrabel with the, you didn't give me good enough players to win on defense, and Robinson with the, your guys sucked with the scheme. And I feel like both sides have doubled down, right? Like Vrabel is sticking with Shane Bowen. He's riding that train. And Robinson is bringing in new corners, new pass rushers, new linemen, new everything. Take away from the offense, put it on the defense, put it on a plate, give it to Mike and say, fine, you show me you guys can coach it.
Which is an incredibly terrifying place for your team to be whenever your coach and your GM are on completely different pages. Ben from the text line says, with all this talk about the defense, I expect this offense to take a step back next season with the losses of Arthur Smith, Jonnu, and Davis. That in turn could affect the defense in a negative way by keeping them on the field more often, which I kind of have to agree. I think that the offense will take a step back with Arthur Smith, but you have enough continuity there with Tannehill, with Derrick Henry. I don't think it'll make too much of a step back, but what do you think about that?
Well, I've said this all along. You got to have the star players carry the load. So, like Corey Davis is not a star player. Jonnu Smith has never had 500 receiving yards in a season. And I can't tell you how many times Josh McDaniels left New England, Bill O'Brien came in, Bill O'Brien left New England, somebody else comes in, then Bill O'Brien comes, or Josh McDaniels comes back, or Charlie Weiss leaves New England or whatever. And I never sit back and say, hey, who's Patriots offensive coordinator? He must be just the greatest offensive coordinator in the world. I mean, Byron Leftwich was a guy who literally was playing quarterback like 6 years ago. He's the offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now I hear people say things like, hey, you got to give Byron Leftwich a lot of credit. Do I? Do I? And I'm not saying that Tannehill is Tom Brady, but don't most good quarterbacks lose their coordinators and then the next coordinator comes in and you continue to quarterback fine? That's what good quarterbacks do. If Lamar Jackson loses a coordinator and isn't good anymore, then that tells us, is Lamar really all that good? So, first of all, I don't think the Titans offense was ever that elite to begin with. I think A.J. Brown's really good. I think Derrick Henry's the best running back in the game. Add into the fact that they lose the coordinator, I think there will be a step back offensively. But I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters how much better the offense got in the offseason, that it never would have compensated for how bad this defense was.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't agree with you there that this Titans offense wasn't elite. I think that in 2020, that offense was an elite offense.
They threw for 160 yards in a playoff game.
But to make up for such a terrible defense and still go that far in the playoffs, I think that offense was carrying a much larger
The first round? The Washington football team got to the first round. I guess my thing about the idea about the offense last year was when you put them on the field against Green Bay late in the year, when you put them on the field against the Ravens in the playoffs, they didn't do much. When you put them on the field against Indianapolis the first time, they didn't do much. Now you take Danico Autry and DeForest Buckner out because they had COVID, and all of a sudden Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill are lighting it up. I'm not saying all of the success of the Titans offense last year was based upon the fact that they did it against the Texans. But it kind of felt that way when you really analyze it. And I just go back to that Sunday night game. Now, I know Tannehill was not prepared to play in the snow. He's not a cold weather quarterback. His hands are probably too small for that kind of weather with that kind of snow and trying to hold on to the football and grip the football and throw the football, and you got to throw it differently. And he didn't do that until at least the second half. But I did not. I think the Titans offense was overrated last year, and I think it showed in that Ravens playoff game.
Harley in the text line says, my take is Vrabel is the old school football guy that doesn't trust anyone not in his locker room. He's not being a jerk. He's just not very open, and you're crazy for saying he's on the hot seat.
I'm not saying he's on the hot seat. See, this is where things get misconstrued, right? Did I say Vrabel should be fired or Vrabel's on the hot seat?
You said he could be putting himself on the hot seat.
I'm saying he's hurting himself.
Yeah.
If I'm not saying that Mike Vrabel needs to kiss every puppy. He's got to win games, but man, the hot seat. I guess where I just disagree with everybody on the hot seat is sometimes I feel like callers or listeners or people on social media or just people in general, I think they hear the word hot seat, Caroline, and they think that means fired. I don't think that's what hot seat means. Hot seat means David Poyle was on the hot seat 3 weeks ago. I still think he should be on the hot seat, but he was on the hot seat because, hey, if things didn't get better, see ya. That's what the hot seat is. And I'm saying if Vrabel keeps acting like this, it's going to wear on so many people that if they don't win, he's going to go to the hot seat.
It means the hot seat means you are on your way to being fired, and you believe that Vrabel could be on his way to the hot seat.
I think Vrabel could be getting himself in trouble, yes.
Okay, fair. Another texter to the text line says that he doesn't think he's putting himself in the hot seat quite yet, which you would agree with. The one thing that you cannot argue is the success to turn this team around. Also, Donovan, our friend on the text line, says, I truly wish the rest of America's media, sports or otherwise, spoke with such truth and boldness as you do, Jared. That's
Thank
really
you.
Nice of Donovan to say.
I do appreciate that. I don't try to create headlines. I know this show does from time to time. I don't really try to do that. But I think sometimes you just got to kind of keep it real. I'll ask you this question. If the Titans go, and I don't even know what's bad anymore, right? 5-11 used to be bad. So is 6-11 bad now in a 17-game season?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that's very bad.
Let's say the offense takes the step back we're talking about.
Okay.
Defense stinks because of the scheming. 6-11 this year. You think Vrabel's on the hot seat entering next year?
100%.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, if Mike Vrabel goes out and wins a Super Bowl this year, no, they're not going to fire him. But it's like with Belichick. They went 7-9 this past year, right?
Right.
If we had said before the year, if Belichick goes 7-9, is he going to be on the hot seat? We'd have said no. And he's not on the hot seat. I mean, I don't think Belichick's on the hot seat.
I don't think Belichick's on the hot seat. I also don't think that Vrabel would be on the hot seat because of the way that he addresses the media. I think he would be on the hot seat for going 6-11.
Well, I don't think that, like Pete Carroll, for example, if he's on his way out in Seattle, I don't think he'd be on the hot seat because he has a bad year if the Seahawks have a bad year. I think he'd be on the hot seat because Russell Wilson doesn't like him. Like, that is, so you can be on it for different reasons. Like, I would say this, if Seattle wins a playoff game, or Seattle gets to the playoffs this year, and Russell still wants out, they might fire Pete. Like, I would not put that, above a team to say, no, we are not going to play crybaby Russ every offseason. Let's just make the star quarterback happy. Let's just make the move and fire the coach. So Seattle could win their division, a very competitive division, make it to the playoffs, and then fire Pete Carroll if Russell's still not happy. That's why, there's a lot of different reasons that I think you could be put on the hot seat. We'll get to more of this. 615-737-1025. That is our phone number if you want to get in. 615-737-1025. Plus, we had a basketball game last night, which we have not gotten to. Not much of a game last night. But we will touch on that a little bit as well. Hey, tune in later on in the show as we will reveal a keyword for you to text into the game text line for your chance to win the T-Mobile Hockey Home Gate giveaway. A Dos Equis prize pack, including a case of beer, dessert from Nothing Bun Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. Stillman and Company is presented by TriStar Moving. Caroline Fenton's here. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. We're streaming on the Game Nashville app. ESPN 102.5, the game is kicking off every weekend with free beer. Who does not love free beer, Caroline?
I know I do.
There you go. Tune in all day Friday for your chance to win a $25 gift card from Bavarian Beer House located at the Opry Mills Mall. What'd you think of the basketball game last night? Because you did pick Baylor.
I did not. I picked them to cover. I did not expect them to absolutely dominate Gonzaga. I mean, Gonzaga hasn't lost a game. Before last night, they had not lost a game. So I thought, it was going to be a back and forth, but ultimately Gonzaga was going to win. I thought they're the better team. But this wasn't like, they play 10 times, Baylor wins 5, Gonzaga wins 5. No, after last night, I would say Baylor wins all 10.
10?
If they played how they played last night, they were dominating Gonzaga. And there were a few moments in there where Gonzaga cut their deficit to 9.7 points, where I thought they were going to make a comeback. But Baylor just stomped all over Gonzaga last night.
So I tweeted, I felt after the initial jolt of the game, like you have to have the immediate, like you don't have to have an immediate counterpunch. You can be down by 9 and come back in a game. But I felt like Baylor had their initial, punch back, and it wasn't good enough, Gonzaga had their initial punch back, and it wasn't good enough. And then once Baylor started to widen the lead, I'm like, they can't guard Baylor. I mean, that's what it all came down to for me. They couldn't guard him. Because if they tried to get up on a guy, he just went right around you. If you gave him any space, they drilled a 3. I thought the game was over by 8:35 last night, and it tipped at 8:20.
Oh, no doubt. When they went up, 12-0? In the first few minutes, I thought, okay, this game's over. This momentum is not going to change.
And yet, I think a lot of people were shocked. I thought it was a good game last night. We learned who the national champion was, and that was probably the most important aspect of it. It is time now for Caroline with the news.
We're spanning the sports world. It's Headlines with Caroline on Stillman and Company, right here on Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
So some fun headlines that we had today. There were some Angels fans who still haven't really gotten over the Astros little trash can situation that they had a couple years ago, because Angels fans were throwing some inflatable trash cans on the field in their game against Houston last night.
I was a little surprised by that. At first, I was trying to figure out, I guess I woke up this morning and I saw it on TV and I wasn't awake because I was like, wait a minute, first of all, I saw they throw a blow up trash can on the field. So I thought that was like a trash can that exploded on the field. And I'm like, oh no, is this political thing getting so out of hand with baseball that, we got people throwing explosives on the field? Because to me, that's a big story.
I feel like that would have been a way bigger story.
Oh my God, yes. But you know what? Here's my thing in life. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. The Astros did the crime. They got to keep their championship, but you're going to have to do the time of everybody thinking you're a cheater. Just like everybody thought for a long time that John Calipari was a cheater. Or everybody thinks Rick Pitino's a cheater. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
And if they get to keep their championship and they're doing the time is just having inflatable trash cans being thrown on the field, then that's not such a bad deal.
Agreed.
I take that deal.
Agreed. The Astros got to keep their championship, and really the brunt of people being mad at them was really dulled by COVID-19 last year.
Right.
They deserve some public shaming.
I agree. It's just some good old-fashioned fun. A little bit of breaking news today. Vanderbilt fired their women's basketball coach, Stephanie White.
Yep. So I'd like to bring up an article from the Tennessean that was dated on May 25th, 2016, and I will just read it to you verbatim, the headline. Joe Rexrode, Vanderbilt Stephanie White, worth the wait. Now, let me say this, Caroline. I think I'm pretty well-versed in a lot of things. Women's basketball is probably one of the things that I am most well-versed in.
Okay.
And I said at the time, hey, Belmont had a really good coach, Cam Newbauer, who's now the coach at Florida. And I say, if Vanderbilt hires a coach that's worse than the guy that they could go walk down the street on Wedgwood Boulevard or Wedgwood Avenue and go pick up and walk back, then they got a problem. And they got a committee. There were Final Four coaches who wanted that job because they were calling me saying they wanted that job. Vandy knew that. And they formed a committee, and this is who they hired. And I knew the day of the press conference, I was like, they don't have a chance. She doesn't have a chance. She's nice. I don't want to just jump on her because I like Stephanie White. I think she's got a good heart. She was never going to work in the SEC. And I, again, would just like to go to Bad Take Joe from May 25th, 2016. What else is out there?
Poor Joe Rexroad. Give that man a break. So, back to the game last night. Interestingly enough, Gonzaga lost, but today they are favored to win next year.
So we always do this in the NFL, right? Like right after the Super Bowl's over, it's like, and the Super Bowl odds for whatever. Dude, college basketball, I'm going to be honest with you. And there are some college basketball bennies out there that aren't going to like this. Call me in like 11 months. Call me with college basketball in 11 months. Half these kids across the country are going to transfer. Some of these coaches are going to get fired for cheating. Some of these coaches are going to retire between now and then. Some of these coaches are going to, basically just kind of throw in the towel. Like, it's just, seriously, like, who cares about college basketball next year? I don't even really care about college basketball for this year, and the game was last night. I understand why they're doing it for the whole country to watch a game. You're pushing it with an 8:20 start time. You want to start the Super Bowl at 8:20, which, by the way, they never do. But if you want to start the Super Bowl at 8:20, I'll stay up and watch for you. You're pushing it, basketball, with an 8:20 start time. What else?
And I think that's when you know you're getting old, is whenever 8:20 is way past your bedtime.
True story.
And I'm with you. I'm feeling that. But I guess
and we go on the air at 2 o'clock.
Right, exactly. I guess another follow-up question for you for that. Gun to your head, someone says you absolutely positively have to put money on a NCAA tournament champion next year. Who would you put your money on?
God. Who's got the best recruiting class next year?
Probably Duke.
Okay, you know what? Give me Duke, and I know they had a down year. Give me Duke, Kentucky, Carolina, Kansas. You can have the rest.
Oh, those are the easy picks.
Give me those four.
Where are these famous hot takes I've heard all about?
They all sucked this year. Supposedly, I don't know. I didn't watch. I can tell you this: it won't be Louisville and Chris Mack. That much I know. That's Caroline's headlines here on Stillman and Company. Coming up next. So, I listened to David Poyle on the midday show today. I don't feel like he's going to do a lot of trading. I'm just telling you. Like, the whole idea of a hard sell, I think we know that's out the window. The idea of the soft sell, which makes the most sense, they probably should do. I don't think he's going to do that either. Coming up next, are we taking the cheese on the Predators right now? Are we really taking it? We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company right here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Hey, by the way, coming up later today, we will give you a keyword for you to text in. T-Mobile and 102.5 The Game are giving you and 3 friends the chance to win a stay and play experience at Hermitage Golf Course. Listen in today at 4:15 for the keyword to text into the game text line at 615-737-1025. More details at theGameNashville.com contest page. Stillman and Company, Caroline Fentz here. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, delivered by TriStar Moving. Caroline Fenton is here. Preds tonight taking on the Detroit Red Wings. Did y'all see Detroit spank Tampa the other day?
That was nuts.
I mean, that's not supposed to happen, right?
I'm hoping that's the Tampa team that the Preds play. What was it, 7-1?
I mean,
Detroit?
Spankage.
And I hope that's not the Detroit that the Preds played tonight.
So I have a question for you guys because I think it's the most important question. I heard David Poyle today on the Midday Show. I don't think he's going to trade. I want him to trade. I want him to Granlund, get him out. Hall. I mean, like if they're going to offer you something good, if Toronto is offering you a second-round pick, see ya. If you are getting offered picks for Holla or Cousins or even Yarncroke or Grimaldi or somebody like that who's on a little bit of a heater, do it. Now, Ekholm, that's different. But those guys, they don't mean much to me because I think UC Saros is the reason why the Preds are winning all these games. Really the two goalies because they both got hot. I mean, I brought this up last week, Caroline, that after they lost to Carolina and Tampa by, I think, 5-1 in each game, the Predators were 10 points out of a playoff spot. Rene 38 of 39, Saros 40 of 41, Saros 47 of 48, Rene 27 of 27 of 30 and a shootout win. Saros 31 of 31 in a shutout. Saros had another shutout this past weekend. So here's the question. Are you buying what Saros is selling right now, which is the optimism, the illusion of hope that they could win a playoff series against big bad Tampa if that's how it shakes out? Are you buying that he could legitimately steal a series and make keeping guys on the roster worth it and giving us hope that there could actually be a playoff run around here?
I think he very much so could, but he can't do it single-handedly. You have to see these players step up. And I think that's going to be, if it is going to be, the Preds taking a series away from Tampa, from Carolina, from Florida, it is going to be UC Saros and Ellie Tolvanen together. I don't think that UC Saros can do it single-handedly, but, I mean, you've seen what the goaltending has been able to do this past month pretty much single-handedly.
Yeah, I should say this, because Tolvanen is the other reason why. I mean, it's the goaltending and Tolvanen.
Right.
Like, that's the difference. I mean, I know, like, Joe Rexroad gets mad at me whenever I have, like, a, cause and effect. Like, take a guy out of the lineup, team stinks. That tells me something. Roman Josi gets hurt, doesn't matter. Ryan Ellis gets hurt, doesn't matter. Luke Cunnin gets hurt, doesn't matter. Matt Duchene gets hurt, doesn't matter. Ryan Johansson gets hurt, doesn't matter. Alexander Carrier gets hurt, it doesn't matter. Ellie Tolvanen comes into the lineup, all of a sudden they start scoring more goals. So, yeah, I'll say it's those two guys. But to me, it's all about Saros right now. It's both guys because Rene certainly has done his part in all of this. But right now, Saros is on just such a heater. And so, I mean, I'll tell you this, Saturday's game, I thought they deserved to lose. I thought they deserved to lose Saturday against Chicago. Saros wasn't going to let them lose. So, can he win them a playoff series? And again, we're not saying can he win them a playoff series against a regular team. We're saying can he win them a playoff series against Tampa? And Chris Mason was on the morning show today, former goalie, Preds TV analyst, and he thinks what we're seeing now with Saros is legitimately something that he can be for an extended period of time. Take a listen.
Is this right now, you look at Saros as just he's absolutely in the zone or however you want to say it, or is there any sort of possibility that he's, stepped up to another sustainable level of play?
Well, I think he's at that level. I think you can sustain it. I mean, in my career, I wasn't a starter for the majority of my career, but I had a couple good runs where in St. Louis, I played 34 straight games. And, I had that feeling the entire time. You just get there and the guys around you, it's kind of a group thing, I think, as well. But obviously Saros is the one that's, been that consistent, whether they've had good efforts or not. And Saros has shown in the past that once he gets there, he can stay there, for long periods of time. And I think, and he's done that every year. And the best guys in the league are the guys that can do that. And, and not just at a level that's, he's good every night. He's unbelievable every single night, and that's, I think for this team, they're going to have to, they're going to need that to get in. It's still going to be, they still got quite a few games left, and it's going to be a battle to the end. So if, hopefully crossing our fingers, he can stay there for another 18 more games at least.
So in his last 5 games, here's the save percentages for Saros. 1,000, 900, 943, 967, 952. So right now he's basically, a 970 goaltender. For his career, he's a 920 goaltender. In the playoffs last year against Arizona, he was an 895 goaltender. Are you buying what Chris Mason is selling? That this is sustainable. Let's go around the room. We'll start with you, Caroline.
I do think so, and I think that he used one key word, and that's consistency. Because UC Saros has been the most consistent player on the ice. So if he has been able to keep that up over the past, it's not just a game, it's not just a series, it's not just a week. It has been a span of a few weeks that he is the most consistent player on the ice. So if he has kept it up this far, I think that the bar can be set even higher for UC Saros.
Well, this is like 3 weeks. So it's not, or I should say 2 weeks. It's not like it's the whole season. But, Ian, do you think this is sustainable?
I don't think the current streak of like a 980 save percentage or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
that is not sustainable. No.
His performance against Chicago, we're not going to see that every night. That's not sustainable.
Right. And, he's been playing honestly, he's been playing great. Even that start of that road trip, against Florida, he had a couple of really good games. The game against Dallas was really good. He even, I think he was unavailable for one game for injury and then came back and didn't miss a beat. So that was a good sign. I do think it's possible he could be improved from what he was earlier in the season, but I don't think his current streak right now is sustainable.
So here's what bothers me is I worry about that 895 last year in the Arizona playoff series. That Arizona team sucked. And it wasn't a real playoff series. That was that play into the playoff in the bubble. And that was his first real playoff series. I mean, he had relieved Pekka, about 30 times over the last 4 years because, Laviolette is quick on that trigger finger. And so, again, that Arizona team wasn't that great, 895. If the playoffs started today, I think you could take Tampa because I think he could steal at least 2 games. You'd have to win 1 game, and then you'd have to get lucky. And I think you can do that in this league. Like, you can literally bank on luck winning you 1 game in a series where you're an underdog. Just like you can bank on luck screwing you in 1 game when you're the favorite. But again, like to sit here on April 6th, the playoffs start in a month and a half, and to say he's going to be stealing games against Tampa? Like, I just think that's a little... to me, that's a little too rich, right? It's like one thing to steal a game against Chicago. It's another thing to steal a series against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I agree. If the Preds are playing Tampa Bay tonight, forget this Detroit series. If the Preds are playing Tampa Bay tonight and Thursday, I think it would be way more feasible rather than the series starting next week. I think that maybe having 2 games in Detroit is going to take a little bit away from the steam that they have going.
So I think they have to win both games in Detroit.
100% they have to win both games in Detroit.
I just think that right now, they could probably lose one and find a way, but then you have to make up with it by beating somebody good. When I think playoffs, I think about just like stealing playing Tampa, 2 games there, 2 games here, 1 game there, 1 game here, 1 game there. I think it's a 5-game series. I think he steals 1 game right now. Even the way he's playing. Rene in the playoffs in 2017. I need to pull up that Chicago series. But Rene in the playoffs was .930 with a 196. Like, that's not allowing 2 goals a game. Do we think he can do that against Tampa? When that gets a Nikita Kucherov back? Because if you think he can do that, then fine. Let's see how it plays out. Keep Granlund. Don't get the 2nd-round pick from him. Don't reset your roster at all. Like we all know deep down inside they probably need to do a little bit. Don't do any of that. And just let it ride. And everybody will say, yeah, go for it, go for it, go for it. And when you get knocked out in 5 games, I don't want to hear from the fans that are saying, well, we could have had a 2nd-round pick for Granlund. We could have done this. You know what I mean?
I think that also brings me back to my original point is he just can't do it alone. Can he keep up this consistency if he just has fewer shots on goal that he needs to protect? Then I think yes. But that all comes down to some defensemen that are just at least helping him out and lightening the load.
Boy, I don't know, man. I have a take on that. I want to get to. Because I think there's a lot of people who think the same thing. Like, I certainly don't think you're alone in the idea of, hey, if everybody else just plays a little bit better, then what's that mean? But the last 3 weeks, this little run the Predators have gone on has really affected how I feel about another side of this team. So we'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And here's the question. The question is, do you think Saros can steal a playoff series against Tampa? Because if you don't think he can, then what's the point of us even doing this right now? You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of Mikhail Granlund being on the team next week? What is the point of that? What is the point of Eric Holla being here? What's the point? 615-737-1025. That's our phone number. Big game tonight. By the way, Robbie and Rexro, they picked a click today. I don't really want to pick to click like they do. I think it's great that they do it. But I would say this, though. I do feel like, Caroline, we would hit on them more if we did it than the way that they do it. Like, I think that we would get more right than they get right.
Oh, then I'm all on board.
So tune in to Robbie and Rex Road every weekday morning at 8:45 when the Predators have a weekday game this season for your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. And you can win a prize pack brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. Your next chance to participate is Thursday morning. By the way, John Hines was asked about UC Saros today. We'll get to that as well. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company's delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Hey, Coach, what specifically do you see that is different in Saros' game right now that's been able to allow him to elevate his play so much since the beginning of the season?
Well, I think the first thing was he was. I think when you watch him if you go back to prior video, his stance, he's more upright a little bit. I think earlier in the year he was hunched over and he was kind of over his toes as opposed to being kind of upright, up higher in a more athletic position, because he's a positional goalie. So when his balance wasn't the right way, it was hard for him to get sometimes east-west, or he has to be so quick to make plays because of his size that his ability and his stance to be able to square up to the shooter and not give as much net, but then also be in a position from that where if there is an east-west pass or a rebound or a second chance, that he's now in a position to be able to push and get to those lateral plays a little bit quicker. And I think he's done that's been a big difference in his game. And I'd say the other part is just his awareness around the net now. Like, even if you go back the last few games, sometimes there's been some shots and rebounds, and we might not have the exact coverage that you want, but there's kind of a loose puck or one of their players is coming in, he's got a quick stick, and there's no second chance on those things. So I think his battle awareness when he's in confrontational situations has been high, and he's making the right decisions.
There you go. That was John Hines talking about UC Saros. And again, trade deadline week away, less than a week away, honestly, literally Monday. And I think David Poile is standing pat. I don't think they're trading the guys they should trade. And so I think it all boils down to this. Is the Saros who we're watching right now, again, .980 save percentage, probably not very likely, even in a series against Tampa. Is that good enough? Do you think, are you buying that this Saros could steal a series against a much better Tampa Bay team? You say yes with like an asterisk, probably buy it.
I say yes. They can steal a series away from Tampa or Carolina, both realistic playoff opponents, but UC Saros needs help.
Oh, I hate that. Oh, I hate it. And you know why? Do you know why I hate that take?
Please tell me.
Because I don't believe in this core at all. I don't believe in this team. Like, I believe in the goalie. Like, when the goalie's on, and I believe in Tolvanen, and I think those guys, like everybody else, like, I have watched these same guys lose and lose and lose and lose. And now they're starting to win. And I'm talking about the guys. Like, I think, I'll be honest with you, today, I think the Predators are going to make the playoffs. I do. But when you talk about having a better rest of the season than Dallas and Chicago, that's not the same as beating Tampa in a playoff series.
Right.
You put all those guys on the ice. I've watched Duchesne lose. I've watched Johansson lose. I've watched Forsberg lose. I've watched Yossi and Ellis get abused in playoff series by Winnipeg and Dallas in back-to-back seasons. I've seen all those guys lose. And then all of a sudden, Tolvanen comes up from the minor leagues or the taxi squad, and Saros and Rinne start playing like vintage Rinne and super Saros. And they start winning games. And then everybody wants to pat all these other guys on the back. Like, great job, Mikhail Granlund. But where was that the last 2 years? What he's doing now. It wasn't there. So everybody pats these guys on the back. And then a game like Saturday's happens, and everybody gets patted on the back. And I'm like, nobody deserves any pats on the back. The goalie won you that game.
Well, does it matter what he did 2 years ago if he's playing well now?
Talking about the goalie?
Talking about Gramlin and whoever else you may be saying, we watched them lose for so many years, but now all of a sudden they're getting pat on the back for winning games. Why does it matter that they weren't winning games 2 years ago?
Because the pats on the back should go to the goalie. The goalie deserves all the credit. And Tolvanen. The goalies and Tolvanen that's all that matters. When the goalies were at about 890 save percentage, the team was awful. Nothing changed. They're running out minor league defensemen. Ben Harper is a minor league defenseman. He runs out there every night. Alexander Carrier for the last 5 years has been a minor league defenseman. Jeremy Davies is a minor league defenseman. Those guys are minor leaguers. And they're running out there and they're winning the game because the goalies are playing fantastic. And that's my whole point about the idea of, I thought that everybody got too much credit. Now that we've seen we've got like a really 5-year cap of this Predators organization. Everybody got way too much credit when they won in 2017 and 2018. When they won in 2017, it was because the goalie had a .930 save percentage in the playoffs. They were the 8th seed in the Western Conference because he had a so-so year. So then they go out there and the goalie plays out of his mind and steals a Chicago series, and they get all this confidence, and the goalie is fantastic, and you get to the Cup final, and then it's like, oh, it's everybody. Everybody gets a hug. Johansson gets a hug, and Craig Smith gets a hug, and Sissons gets a hug, and they all get Ellis, give me a hug, and it's just hug, hug, hug. And we don't look back on it and say, Pontus Aberg, minor leaguer, big goal in Game 5 of the Western Conference Final. Colin Wilson, a guy nobody ever liked around here, big goal in Game 5. Freddie Gaudreau, Colton Sissons. I mean, bottom 6 forwards. NHL bottom 6 guys. It was all the goalie. It was all the goalie. And right now, I feel like all the winning is all the goalie. That's what I'm saying when I told you during the break. I was like, I hope they sell, the sellable parts, and then still make the playoffs. Get your second-round pick for Granlund and still make the playoffs. It's possible because I don't think he matters. I don't think any of those guys matter. I literally think they could play with the AHL roster and Ellie Tolvanen, and if the goalies are playing the way they're playing right now, they could still win some games. And I know, I'm sure there are people that are going to hear that and they're going to get really mad. Be like, you don't understand hockey if you don't think it's a full team effort all the time. And but the fan base hated John Hines 4 weeks ago. What changed? That's my whole take on this is I just don't think any of these guys matter anymore. We spent so much time sitting there debating whether or not these guys are worth 8 years or 7 years or $6 million or God, the Matt Duchene chase. We spent so much time. Goalies fall off. Everybody gets fired. Every fan hates the whole roster, the core. Blow it up. Get rid of everybody. Goalies start playing well. Back in a playoff spot. I know that they get on me for cause and effect sports takes, but I don't think that this is a bad cause and effect. Goalie's not playing at elite level. You lose to Arizona. Goalie plays at elite level. You beat Tampa with Jeremy Davies on the ice. I just think it's simple. And that's what frustrates me so much. Because if we're all realistic about this, then we would say, okay, we really expect UC Saros against that offense at Tampa Bay to go steal games. And you can expect it. I mean, you can legitimately expect it. I have a hard time getting there.
And to that point of saying, can they beat Tampa Bay? Can they really steal a playoff series with just UC Saros playing? To that I say yes, he needs help. But also I bring up the 2019 Blues, and the Preds are not the 2019 Blues. I don't think we can expect a Stanley Cup championship from this team. But what I can say is Jordan Binnington, goaltender for the Blues, I would say single-handedly won that championship for St. Louis.
Stole series for them. I mean, he just
100%. And you've got Ryan O'Reilly, you've got Pat Maroon, who won back-to-back Stanley Cups. But I think that proves that, maybe UC Saros and LA Tolvanen could steal playoff series together.
So do you think they can steal it? 615-737-1025. We'll go to your thoughts. To me, I'm cool with selling everybody. And not selling everybody. I mean, you keep Ekholm. But I am totally cool. Granlund, Haula, every player on an expiring contract, even guys who aren't on expiring contracts. If you got a guy who's on a heater and if somebody offers you a first-round pick for Calle Yarncroke, I am packing his bags for him. And I like Yarncroke. I do. But I am packing those bags. I believe that the just falling in love with everybody based solely upon the goalie success is exactly how you end up with the love affair with Ryan Ellis and the love affair with Craig Smith. And I'm like, no, this, you can get the best of both worlds, right? You can sell those guys. You can still try to make the playoffs if your goalie can get you there. And then, hey, if he steals the series, he steals the series. If he doesn't, you got your second round pick for Granlund and you're good. And that's where I sit. I don't think they're going to do it, though. 615-737-1025. We will go to you. 615-737-1025. And Porth texted me. He said, goaltending is better, but once the injuries happen, this team played to a specific system that is helping limit the great chances, which helps the goaltending. Let me say this. Robbie Stanley tweeted me and said, okay, to say that the 2017 run was all about Pekka would be overly simplistic. Well, let me say this. The 2019 Titans run, that was all about Derrick Henry, right?
Oh, night and day.
Okay. Yeah, I know Byard had an interception, and Jonnu Smith made an incredible catch in the end zone against Baltimore, and Khalif Raymond had a touchdown, and Anthony Ferkser had a couple of big catches in the Patriot game. We saw what happened when Derrick Henry didn't run for 200 yards.
Right.
Okay, that's how I feel about this. Your thoughts next. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company. Caroline's here hanging out with us right here on ESPN 1025 The Game. I hope we have not scared Caroline so far, but we'll see. Fast Pace Health is offering Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccines. That's right, at their pop-up vaccine center, 6550 Carruthers Parkway, Suite 140, Franklin, from 9 to 3 on both tomorrow and Thursday. The vaccines will be offered by appointment only, and while supplies last, please visit fastpacehealth.com/COVID vaccine to see available appointment times and to register online. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Has he exceeded your expectations? Did you think that this was in the cards? How would you describe the way you felt maybe the first game that he played this season to where you are today?
Well, if you go back to, we've been talking about Kelly for a couple of years, but yet we have not given him much of an opportunity. 7 games over a couple of years is not a big opportunity. We've asked a lot of him in terms of his conditioning, changing his game a little bit away without the puck, his defensive responsibilities, killing penalties down in the minors. And again, coming to training camp this year, this would have been a prime time for us to give him more of a chance, but we didn't. Whether he deserved that or not, it's up in the air. And again, it's from a lot of guys not playing as well, some injuries. He finally gets his opportunity. I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because it feels like this has been sort of the right way to do it with him. I mean, I love it when guys graduate from college, so to speak, and they go through all the courses. There's no shortcuts. They put in their time down in Milwaukee. They seem to be better, more rounded players. We saw that a long time ago at goaltending with Pekka Rinne, who played almost a full 3 years in Milwaukee, and obviously turned out to be one of the best players we've ever had here. You've seen this again, not only with Tolvanen, but with Carrier. This year he's played, this is his 4th year down in Milwaukee, and he's finally cracking the lineup. Trennan, 2.5 years down in Milwaukee. Olivier. So I really feel that it may be longer than we want, our fans want, but it feels like it's the right thing to do. Oftentimes I've seen other teams rush players, and for whatever reason, they never live up to their potential, but it certainly feels like these younger players, and specifically asking me about Tolvanen, is a guy that's certainly going to be exciting for our fans for a lot of years, and it certainly looks like he's going to be scoring some important goals for us.
David Poyle on the Midday Show today. Don't even get me started about how they handle Tolvanen. But I hear the text line is popping, Caroline Fenton. Our text line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com on the Predators. I hear it's popping. Anybody got a thought, or do we want to go to the phones?
I'm ready to go to the phones. The text line is popping.
All right, let's do it.
So Andrew says that this hot stretch is literally the worst thing that could have happened. You could have had a fire sale and been amazing in 3 years, but instead it'll be a bunch of getting the playoffs and losing 5 the next few years.
So I don't believe in the fire sale like that. I don't think that they need to do that this year. I think the bigger moves are made in the offseason this year. But the idea of picking up like a 3rd-round pick or a 4th-round pick for Nick Cousins, to me, that's a little trade chip that you now have later in life. Maybe it's a player, maybe it's not. A 2nd-round pick to me is real. A 2nd-round pick is Roman Josi. A 2nd-round pick is Shea Weber. A 2nd-round pick is real, at least where I sit. So I half agree with that take.
Well, CC says winning with Saros alone in a series against Tampa, there is no way. Pekka has to play at some point, or there would be a repeat of last season, and she hopes Hines has learned that his lesson if the Predators hope to be successful during a playoff run.
So I'm not going to say that either. I mean, I thought, so this was my take last year in Arizona, and I asked Hines about it as soon as they lost, which was, if Saros was going to go out there and light it up, then that's fine. If he steals you game 1, or he, if he does what he did on Saturday, if he does that in 1 game or 2 games, then okay, he's hot. Let him roll. But once he wasn't, and you realize that through 3 games, I would have made the move to Pekka. And I would do the same thing if they played Tampa Bay and say you're down 2-0 and it doesn't look like Saros is stealing any of these games or even coming close. And again, that's a 9-12 save percentage. That's a 9-13 save percentage. Last year in Arizona, he was, I have it written down right here, he was
895.
895 in the Arizona series. Under 900 and you stink. And he wouldn't make the move then. So I would give Saros a chance, but I would not be hesitant to make the move if it's obvious he's not going to play at this level against the Tampa Bay. Let's go to the phones. Larry has been waiting patiently. He's up next. Thank you for calling. 615-737-1025. Go ahead, Larry.
Hey, Jared. I agree with your analysis. Essentially, this team in the playoffs doesn't prosper, maybe win a game or 2. And we suffer from what we've always suffered from, and that is that we're a very small team. Small men can't win. in the NHL. Look at what Tampa Bay did when they brought in a couple of big guys. They won the cup. We have a bunch of really good figure skaters. But ultimately, hockey is a game which completely morphs during the playoffs, like no other major league. So I think we're sellers.
So I appreciate your call, Larry. And we have always talked about this on the show. Arvidsson, great regular season player, although he is not this season a great regular season player, not a great playoff player. Because one of the rules on this show is that the good little guys always get beaten by the good big guys. And that's one of my beefs with Ryan Ellis is he's not big. You know, I think it's Willie Donick says all the time that when David Poyle drafted Ryan Ellis in the first round, he said, hey, if he was a couple inches taller, he'd have gone higher in the first round. Well, guess what? He's not. You know, when we look at these draft prospects outside of Kyler Murray, how many guys do we say, you know, he's probably 4 inches too short, but he's a great wide receiver? Well, yeah, he goes in the 5th round, not the 1st. And I certainly think size is an issue. Like Joe Rexrode's mad at me right now, and he says that it's never about the goalie. Pekka was the top factor in 2017, but Johansson played so well against Jonathan Taves. Subban and Ekholm, the way they played together. Now, that's true. Subban and Ekholm were awesome. But, okay, let's factor this now. You think Ryan Johansson's going to dominate Braden Point or Nikita Kucherov in a Tampa series? We haven't seen it in 3 years. So we can keep waiting. We can keep waiting. We can keep praying. But we saw it against Arizona. We saw it against Dallas. We saw it against Winnipeg. We even kind of saw it against the Punch and Judy Avs. Like, let's be real. Let's go to Mark, who's up next. Thank you for calling the show. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My question is about Ekholm. For the life of me, I can't understand why we always bang him out there. And to me, in playoffs especially, defense wins, and he is by far, to my opinion, the best all-around defenseman we got. I mean, I don't understand the love affair with Ellis, and to even a certain extent, Yossi. So I just kind of get your thoughts on that. To me, if I could keep it in him, it would be Ekholm. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for the call, Mark. So I was listening to Boston radio yesterday, and they were talking about adding Matthias Ekholm yesterday. They were like, what about him? And I think you're going to see a lot of that. Like, I think that's going to – people are going to keep bringing him up. I do not think they're going to trade him. And I do think that they have finally realized. I think when Elliot Friedman put out that mea culpa a couple weeks ago after he said Ellis was untouchable, and then he put out there, you know, I'm hearing now teams are calling Nashville about Ellis because he's got longer term. I think that's the Predators telling Elliot Friedman, hey, you know, people are calling us about Ellis actually because the Predators want it out there. Hey, you might call about Ekholm, but you're probably not going to get him. But, hey, call about Ellis too. We'd like some calls on Ellis because I think they'd rather keep Ekholm over Ellis. I can't tell them what to do. They very rarely listen to what I tell them to do. I would say this. Yossi is a number 1 defenseman in the NHL. Ekholm, in my opinion, is a number 1 defenseman. He is a top pair defenseman. Those two guys are legitimate number 1s. Ellis is a number 2. Jury's out on Fabro. And the jury may be out on Fabro for a while. It may get to the point with Fabro where this is who he is, and 3 years from now we'll be like, hey, he's not a number 1 defenseman. But I would agree with the caller. Ekholm's a number 1 defenseman. And if you can find a way to extend, like a legitimate number 1, and I don't think he's lazy, and I don't think he's going to get, you know, fat and happy with his contract like maybe other guys on the team have done, I would agree with the caller. I think they should keep Ekholm. I think they should go through. They're going to lose a player they don't like in the expansion draft. That's okay. And then deal Ellis once the expansion draft is over. That's just me. And I would deal Ellis to anybody who would take him for whatever they'll give me. So I know they're like holding out hope that they could get something good in return. I would just give it, like if somebody takes that full contract and then I take that pile of money for Ryan Ellis and I turn around and I hand it to Matthias Ekholm, that's what I would do. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. By the way, there was something about last night's basketball game. And, you know, I don't know how many takes there are with last night's basketball game. But there's something about last night's basketball game that just bothered me a little bit. We'll get to that coming up. Stillman and Company right here on ESPN 1025 The Game. By the way, speaking of the Predators, join us on Wednesday nights from 6 to 7 for Smashville Live, featuring Preds players, former players, and other special guests. You can also watch the show online via 1025 The Game's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and thegamenashville.com. Smashville Live is brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, Red Spirits and Wine in Bellevue. And to view or listen to past shows, go to thegamenashville.com/Smashville Live. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game, and we're streaming on the Game Nashville app.
Scott Drew's dream comes true. Coach Drew and Baylor complete college basketball's greatest rebound and rebuild with a championship.
There you go, Scott Drew, national champion, Caroline Fenton. Should I be upset at myself? But Scott Drew gets to Baylor. Total mess, right?
Right.
Total, NCAA, legal issue. Just awful. And this was back at a day and time where if you had an issue in the NCAA, like if you smoked weed, if you had a team that smoked weed, you were like, oh, bad team, breaking rules, marijuana, honey badger. Oh, awful, awful, awful. And now we don't live in that society. Like now we just know, like, yeah, college kids smoke.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah. But this was a lot bigger than that. This was coaches lying, investigators, all kinds of stuff.
It was dirty laundry.
Dirty. Bryce Drew takes Baylor. Terrible. Makes them okay. Then a little terrible. Then okay.
Scott
then okay.
Drew.
Scott Drew, excuse me.
Bryce Drew, Grand Canyon.
Yes.
Who also turned around kind of a dumpster fire of a program.
And we'll get to Bryce in a second.
Yes.
And now Scott Drew has the best team in basketball. One of the best teams I've seen. I mean, that was an awesome team last night. Wins a national title. It took time, but it happened. Bryce Drew takes over Vanderbilt. Makes the NCAA tournament his first year. Bad, I believe, the second year. The third year gets Darius Garland, star recruit. Darius Garland gets hurt. Doesn't win a game in the SEC. New AD comes in, basketball background, minor league basketball background, fires Bryce Drew, hires minor league basketball coach of the year Jerry Stackhouse, who has no idea how to run a basketball program, a college basketball program. Maybe he knows how to do the pros. Should we look back on Baylor's championship yesterday with Bryce Drew's brother and the fact that Bryce Drew won at Valpo and Bryce Drew, to your point, has won at Grand Canyon? And should we look back on it and say, maybe Vandy pulled the trigger a little too soon on Bryce Drew? Now, I was one who was kind of 50-50 on it, probably leaned more towards firing him than keeping him. But, I mean, now that I know what the alternative is with Stackhouse, I think that was a bad take on my part. If that was I can't remember my exact take. I know it wasn't overly strong about wanting to get rid of Bryce Drew. But, I mean, now I see Bryce Drew's brother winning a title, and Bryce Drew's winning at Grand Canyon, and Stackhouse can't get out of his own way.
I think that's so easy to say in retrospect. Because if you would have told me, or if someone would have told you a couple of years ago when Bryce Drew was the head coach at Vanderbilt and you were just so low on him that, hey, in a couple of years he's going to turn around a really failing Grand Canyon program and bring them to the NCAA tournament, I don't think you would have believed them. So I think it's easy to say in retrospect, did Vandy pull the trigger too early? Maybe. But you also would have been criticizing them if they hadn't fired him sooner.
So I'm trying to, I'm literally going, I said in March of 19 that Bryce Drew had to go. So, I mean, I guess I was wrong about that. I mean, I'm somebody who thought that Bryce Drew was going to, and I guess I wasn't hammering it because I only had one tweet that said it. But I thought when Bryce Drew took the Vanderbilt job, I thought he was going to take Vanderbilt to the Final Four. I did. And did I get crushed for that take. But, I mean, now Bryce Drew's brother wins a national title. Bryce Drew's coaching well. Jerry Stackhouse. I mean, don't even get me started on Jerry Stackhouse. I mean, I like Scottie Pippen Jr., but, I mean, gosh. And, again, Vandy basketball doesn't really move the needle around here. But if they were really good, they would. You know, if they were national championship caliber, they probably would.
For sure.
But
you get excited when your local team wins.
But I guess they just don't move the needle. They just don't do it. All right, here's Caroline's headlines.
We're spanning the sports world. It's Headlines with Caroline on Stillman and Company. Right here on Nashville's best sports talk. ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
All right, well, we talked a lot last week about the MLB moving the All-Star game out of Atlanta, and now we learned that it is moving to Colorado. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I was in the third grade when they played the last All-Star game in Denver at Coors Field. I like Denver. I like Coors Field. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure I really care that much. You know, I think the whole, All-Star game thing has gotten blown up out of such huge proportions that I'm not sure I really care anymore. And I saw today they were talking about, well, the voting laws in Colorado are this, and maybe that's why. And I heard that, and I was like, okay, at some point, Major League Baseball can't decide everything they do based upon the voting laws in the cities or states in which they perform in. I think, there's a big fear amongst a lot of people. I'm not a big cancel culture guy. I'm not really sure it's a real thing, although there are people that will tell you, oh, cancel culture. They've canceled Dr. Seuss. Have they? I don't know. I still know green eggs and ham. But I think, one of the things that people fear about it is, okay, well, if we're going to start doing it for this, then what's next after that? And I think I kind of see this, right? In baseball, it's, okay, you moved it out of Georgia. Well, this state has stricter laws, so now are you not going to play it there? And while I don't completely agree with the premise, I at least understand the argument. And I just don't think it's a fight that Rob Manfred needs to fight every single time they decide to do anything in baseball. Because I'll be honest with you, I think everybody should be allowed to vote. do I really care about the nuances of Colorado's voting law? Like, does it affect my day-to-day life? Am I really thinking about it on a day-to-day basis? No. And I don't want to think about it on a day-to-day basis.
Which is very, very fair. Moving on, our friend Cole Kublik, who joined the show last week, tweeted this morning, I don't know what it was. Baylor held Zags to 70 points, lowest of the Zags season. Bucks held the Chiefs to 9 points, lowest of their season. Alabama held Ohio State to 341 yards, lowest of their season. Defense ain't dead yet. You hear that, Mike Vrabel? Defense wins championships.
I'd also say good defensive coaching.
Also good defensive coaching.
Should be noted. And I always think it's funny, right? Like, I can't tell you, like last year during the pandemic, like sports was off, like just completely off. And when it was off, like they would have, the 2003 World Series, and they'd show a game and you'd see a guy and it would say like at the bottom, like hasn't given up a run in 83 and a third innings. And then boom, 2-run homer. And it's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Well, yeah, because in 2003, that guy, those 83 innings were against bad teams. There were some good teams probably mixed in there, but there's a lot of bad teams. So all of a sudden, Ohio State, you're not playing Northwestern anymore.
Right.
I know Gonzaga played some good teams this year, and they, didn't, have this awful schedule, but you're not playing St. Mary's anymore. You're playing the second best team, or in this case, the best team in the country. And so I think you're always going to see that. In the playoffs and in the championships, you're always going to see, like, hey, this team hasn't given up a first down all year, and then they give up 14. Well, guess what? They're not getting to play. I'm trying to think of a bad quarterback off the top of my head. I mean, you're not getting to play Jameis Winston this week. You're facing Tom Brady, and I think that's why you see that most of the time. But to your point, defense, I'm a defensive guy now. I used to be a sales tickets guy. I am a defensive guy. Give me defense.
Defense ain't dead. It's not fun to look at, but it ain't dead. Wins championships. Our friend Greg Wyshynski at ESPN ranked his top 10 in each position group in the NHL. And interestingly enough, he ranked Roman Josi the third best defender in the NHL behind Victor Hedman of the Lightning and Colorado's Cale Makar. And interesting, 5 of the top 10 are in the NHL Central.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my reasons why. And how many Predators outside of Roman Josi are on that list?
None.
Okay. So that goes back to my point about, hey, if we make the playoffs, then you play everybody who has better players than you. Like and I'm not sitting here trying to dump on the Predators or dump on Predator fans, but you're literally playing everybody who's better than you. Even defense. The one thing, hey, Roman Josi's really, really good. Victor Hedman's better. Like, think about that. But I think everybody gets allured by the cookie right in front of them of, hey, anything can happen. Okay, fine, anything can happen. You guys do whatever you want to do. Call me, after Tampa wins in 5.
We talked at nauseum yesterday about how Cam Newton may or may not suck.
He does suck.
And what the Patriots are going to do at the quarterback position. I saw today that USA Today quarterback reporter Chrissy Freud reported that former Mississippi State quarterback KJ Costello met with the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, they got to do better than that. I mean, it's got to be better than Jarrett Stidham. It's got to be better than, it's got to be a real quarterback. I mean, this is what I think's happening. My gut. Because I can't believe the greatest coach of all time would bank on Cam Newton. I think they know San Francisco is going to take Mac Jones. And when San Francisco takes Mac Jones, they're going to ask Garoppolo to redo his contract. And Garoppolo won't redo his contract because he'll want to be released and get to pick where he goes. And remember, they signed Cam for a deal that was up to whatever million.
Right.
Not is whatever million. It's up to. And I think they've got Cam. And when the 49ers release Jimmy, they'll sign Jimmy and he'll be their quarterback. I'm saying it today. Jimmy Garoppolo, Patriots quarterback 2021. That's Caroline's headlines. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. If Mel Kiper Jr. and Todd McShay weren't enough, Mike Tannenbaum, former NFL general manager. Ian, you remember the kicking and screaming that it took to get our general manager to do a mock draft.
Oh, yes.
Well, Mike Tannenbaum has a mock draft out, and it is a wild mock draft, including what the Titans do. We'll get to that coming up next. FanDuel Sportsbook app. That's right, my official sportsbook app. I absolutely love the FanDuel Sportsbook app. And it's the Masters. One of the best things about golf is it's a gimme. So if you want to start betting on golf, FanDuel Sportsbook has the gimme just for you. New users can get 20-1 odds on Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, or Jordan Spieth just to make the cut. That's right. Take your pick. You'll get 20-1 odds on 3 of the world's best golfers just to make the cut. You can win $100 on a $5 bet. There isn't much more of a gimme than that. And when you do win, FanDuel will get you your winnings in as little as 24 hours. The world's best golfers tee off in Augusta on April 8th through the 11th. And there are even more ways to win with America's #1 sportsbook. Create your account using the promo code JGM to get those 20-1 odds. That's promo code JGM on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. New users only must wager in a designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. $100 max bonus. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For problem and gambling support, call 1-800-889-9789. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving. ESPN 1025 The Game. NFL draft season is upon us. Trevor Maddich in 25 minutes, ESPN college football analyst. His thoughts on all the latest. Caroline, we've got another ESPN mock draft to discuss. I got to tell you, I love mock drafts. Not that I think they're right, but I love them. Although I will say this, and I'm sorry to cut you off there.
Go ahead.
Last year, there were a lot of people that were mocking Isaiah Wilson to the Titans. I sent TD a picture. We make this big board every year on draft night. And, this big dry erase board. And I sent TD a picture of it, because obviously, with TD's in the family. and I sent a picture of the board or whatever, and on it had like 4 different people, like Daniel Jeremiah, Peter King, Todd McShay, like they all, their last mocks had Isaiah Wilson to the Titans. So maybe there's something to those. But we do have another mock draft today. Mike Tannenbaum's mock draft. And this one seems a little different.
This one was kind of spicy. Mock drafts are fun because I like to see what people are thinking. But yeah, once you get to this time, it's all the same. You're saying Trevor Lawrence 1. You're saying Zach Wilson 2. You're saying Mac Jones 3, which I'm still not convinced is going to happen. But this is the first one that kind of shook things up a bit.
I mean, this one, for example, he's got Kyle Pitts, who some people will tell you is the 3rd best player in this draft. He's got Kyle Pitts going at 12 to the Eagles. So he's got Azeez Ojulari, who Daniel Jeremiah ranked as like the 39th best player in the draft, who we're seeing mocked as a late first, early second. He's got Azeez Ojulari of the Giants, or Azeez Ojulari of Georgia at 11 to the Giants. Which, by the way, the more people in the know I hear talk about Ojulari, there's no shot he gets a 22. Here are some of the wild names that are around the Titans. So he's got all the corners going off right before the Titans. So Caleb Farley is the last, high-end corner. The 3 guys, Farley, J.C. Horn, and Patrick Surtain II. He's got Farley at 20 to Chicago. Then he's got the Titans at 22. Eric Stokes, corner out of Georgia. Now, what do we know about Eric Stokes? Now, I'm not saying Tannenbaum's wrong, because he might be right. This year was a weird, funky year. But how much Eric Stokes talk have we heard, not just surrounding the Titans, how much Eric Stokes talk have we heard at all?
We were texting earlier, and we both said, who? We've never heard of him before, but I did a little Eric Stokes research, and he seems like a seriously viable candidate that I'm not really sure why his name hasn't come up yet.
In the first round?
For the Titans.
I know he ran really fast in his pro day. That's all I know about him.
Yes. Ran 2 back-to-back sub-4 340s, which is incredibly quick. He's second in the SEC in interceptions. Do you know who's first? Fun trivia question, putting you on the spot.
J.C. Horn.
Emmanuel Forbes, Mississippi State, with 5 interceptions in the 2020 season.
Yeah.
The more you know. You can take that one to the bank. He had 4 interceptions in 10 games. 2 of those were pick sixes.
So you're okay with that pick? He does not have Gregory Newsome II, by the way, out of Northwestern, who is considered to be the 4th corner in this draft. He does not have Newsome in the first round. Stokes is the 4th and final corner that he has going off the board in his top 32.
I say if the Titans need a corner that badly, sure, I think he's a wonderful option. But in this mock draft, he still has Jalen Phillips on the board at 22. So if I'm the Titans, I'm taking Jalen Phillips.
So here's what Tannenbaum writes. He goes, out go Malcolm Butler and Adoree Jackson. In come Janoris Jenkins and Stokes. The Titans will love Stokes' elite speed, versatility, and ball skills. Kentucky's Kelvin Joseph was an option for me too, and an edge rusher or tackle would have been justifiable, but ultimately I want a shutdown corner in Tennessee's contention window. I would argue, doesn't the guy who's really, really fast, doesn't that kind of sound like Adoree Jackson? And I'm not saying that they shouldn't draft Eric Stokes because Adoree Jackson long-term didn't work out here. I'm just a little nervous in the first round at putting all of my chips in the center on a guy whose number one thing is that he can run.
I agree. And if the Titans are so sold on getting Eric Stokes, then you got to trade down. He's going to be there in the second round. I don't think that you need to put all of your eggs on the 22nd pick in a guy who will most likely be around in the 30s and 40s.
So the one thing I have a hard time with, especially on Tannenbaum's mock draft, I will give Tannenbaum credit because it's easy just to go do what everybody else is doing.
Right.
Everybody has Ojulari at the end of the first round, the beginning of the second. He's got him 11th. It's easy to have Kyle Pitts at 5 to the Bengals, at 6 to the Dolphins. He's got him at 12. That to me is easy. He literally went through this. I think he did this as if I were each team. Like if he were the general manager of each team, this is what he would do. And you say, hey, Eric Stokes will be there. The one thing I'll say is there's no guarantee about one guy. I don't think you can circle one guy in this year's draft and say that guy will be there for me at 22. Or if I trade down, that guy will be there for me at 28. I think it's more like I need 6 guys I like, and one of them should be there if I trade down to 28. if I trade down to 31 with, say, Kansas City. One of those guys should be there. That I think you could, like, if you're saying, okay, these pass rushers, Gregory Rousseau, Jalen Phillips, Azeez Ojulari, Kwity Paye, Zaven Collins, 5 edge rushers. One of those guys should be available if you trade down to 25 or 26. Should. And if they're not, then one of the corners will be available at 25 or 26 or 28 or something like that, or one of the tackles. Or there will be a guy that they can pick at a position. But I struggle with the idea that we can just say, okay, one guy will be there, because I think unlike every other year with no combine and without as much hands-on interaction with the executive scouts and media people, I think the board is different. Like, I think that the board, we're going to be in for this where, and we normally are in most drafts, but especially this year, where everybody thinks somebody is the 10th best player in the draft, and they'll have him ranked, most teams will have him ranked at 43.
Right.
You know, I call this the Jadeveon Clowney effect, where the media thinks somebody is way better than every team in the league does. Or I think the opposite will be true, where one of these wide receivers, Kadarius Toney, will be valued more than Jalen Waddle by some teams. I think that is the possibility this year in the draft. And that's where I look at the Tannenbaum draft, and I'm like, I feel like this could literally be all over the place. Again, a week ago, Daniel Jeremiah said Azeez Ojulari was the 40th best player, and now a former general manager has him going 11th. And so Eric Stokes, like, I'll be honest, I don't know that much about. Now, I also would not be worried whether it's Ojulari, whether it's Stokes, whether it's somebody else. I would not be worried about the Titans. I wouldn't have some fear with the Titans drafting a guy from Georgia just because it didn't work out with Isaiah Wilson. I just don't believe in that.
I don't think so at all. I didn't think that was even a possibility of being an issue.
You see, like, I've seen it, texters, callers, Gentry Estes wrote a column about it. I wouldn't be worried about. I think the thing you'd be worried about is what was your process for getting information out of Georgia? Because
yes.
Is that the same process that you're using in terms of getting information this year from the same guys? But I still think if the best guy that they think is, graded out, I think it's a possibility. Position-wise, I think they will look at that 22nd pick and they will say there will be a pass rusher there will be a corner, there will be a tackle, or there will be a wide receiver. So there at least will be something that you need or you want. But Tannenbaum, no Greg Newsome, and not even considering it either. The kid out of Northwestern, he's saying the kid out of Kentucky would be his pick if it wasn't Eric Stokes. So what do we think of that? 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. And Trevor Maddich will join us later this hour. Plus, I would say there is a guy that the football people clearly love, which makes me think, as much as we hear this name with the Titans, maybe we should move on from it. I'll explain next. Stillman and Company. We are live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They're giving away free vacations for you and your family this month. With every purchase of a new whole home generator or select new HVAC systems, Hiller is giving you a free week-long vacation. That's 7 days. With every purchase of a new tankless water heater, Hiller is giving you a free weekend-long vacation. That's 4 days. I almost said 4. And they'll pay for your gas with a $100 gas card. Choose from over 400 Marriott, Wyndham, Hilton, or Hyatt hotel properties. Take advantage of this unbelievable deal while you can. These deals are only available for a limited time, so make sure you schedule today. It's easy. Go to happyhiller.com where they have all the details. As always, I've told you guys, Hiller takes great care of my home, and they will do an absolutely great job for you. I can't have anything go wrong without me picking up the phone, calling Hiller immediately. They're here. It's fixed. I never have to worry about it again. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. As always, happy you will be here. The service is free. Hiller, proud supporters of the Vols and the Preds. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
we all kind of got a good chuckle out of the way you trolled Taylor with the photo of you taking the snap. But in all seriousness, how much more valuable is being able to get that hands-on work at these pro days with these guys because you're not having a lot of the face-to-face and interview processes that you normally would?
I don't think it would be any different than, I mean, we have a lot of, we have a lot of face-to-face as far as, with the Zoom meetings, and so not being able to sit down with them and maybe watch film at their pro day is probably really the only difference. But, the NFL is allowing you 5 Zoom meetings, per player. And so, we track those and we try to space them out with who gets what time. And, we have a process that we try to follow as far as who's meeting with them and how John and I are meeting with them. And, we've been, pretty booked up and I feel comfortable, and we've got a lot of great efforts by, the people that are scheduling those meetings.
There you go. 5 Zoom meetings per player. I think now would be the time for me to tell the people that Caroline and I did not Zoom 5 times before we hired Caroline.
No, we Zoomed once, so thanks for having that much.
Is that right?
You and I Zoomed once.
Okay, how many total Zooms did you do with the media station?
Total Zooms, I think I did 3.
So we didn't even use our full 5 Zooms to hire you.
I had more calls. I had phone calls, but not as many.
You get unlimited
Zooms.
phone calls with players.
Okay, yeah, I did 3 Zooms. So thanks for believing in me. Less than 5 Zooms.
Without using the 5 Zooms.
Yeah, thank you.
So there you go. So, I think you should be able to figure it out in 5 Zooms. I know, like, some team will have an Isaiah Wilson situation happen, and they'll say, well, we only got 5 Zooms with the guy. We didn't get an opportunity. Okay. Like, I don't think I'm not willing to hear that one out. To me, that's just excuse making. Mike Tannenbaum's mock draft. So everybody seems to, all the football people I know seem to really like Azeez Ojulari. They also seem to really like Jalen Phillips, and Jalen Phillips goes later than the Titans pick. I think he goes to Cleveland at 26 in Mike Tannenbaum's latest mock draft. But Azeez Ojulari is a late first, early second mock draft guy. Mel, Todd, the NFL Network guys, like, they like Ojulari, but 22 with the Titans is where most of them have him going the earliest. Tannenbaum, in his mock draft, has Ojulari going with the 11th pick. So, I mean, not even trying. I mean, to go with everybody else. He's got Ojulari at 11th and writes the following, quote, the Giants attacked cornerback and wide receiver in free agency, so pass rusher is their number one need. And Coach Joe Judge seeks versatile guys off the edge, which is why I'm going with Ojulari here. He's tough and can get home on the quarterback, but he's also an outside linebacker who can drop into coverage. Kwity Paye at Michigan, for example, doesn't do that. Now, I talked to a coach yesterday, tons of SEC experience, tons of Big Ten experience now in the ACC. I talked to a coach yesterday, defensive coach, who told me that he would go Phillips, Ojulari, and then thought that Russo and Paye were kind of overrated. And TD has been on this show, just from the top rope saying the Titans should draft Azeez Ojulari if he's there at 22. So I'm thinking now that I've seen Tannenbaum put him at 11, I don't think he's going to be there at 22. I know the mock draft gurus don't love him, but the football people seem to really like him. And he plays pass rusher, and that's a position where if you're any good, you go before pick number 22.
And you can say he's the 40th best player in the draft all day long, but if teams are drafting for need, which the Giants do need pass rush.
At 11, though?
If that's what they need, and they think he's the best pass rusher in this draft, then, yeah, take him at 11.
I would not take a guy. I think it is criminal to take somebody in the draft, like take the 40th best player with the 11th pick. Like, I think that is criminal. Like, you got to trade back and then know that that's the 40th best player.
But what if that guy's not there? You cannot guarantee that just because people think he's the 40th best player that he's going to be there at 20, 25, wherever it may be.
Right, but then if somebody else picks him, then they pick the 40th best player at 17.
Okay.
And so that means that if you trade it down to 22, then you're at least going to get the 21st best player in this draft. I mean, the one thing I will say is that if you draft a guy out of need and you overdraft a guy, that slides the board down for everybody else, and then you have to play. So you get the 40th best player, and even though you don't have a need, the next team that you have to play, like, for example, the Giants are 11th, the Eagles are 12th. Now the Eagles get a really good player that you could have taken away from Philadelphia to beat you.
That's true.
And that's why you have to slide down. So if you slide down, then say Cleveland trades up and takes that player, Philadelphia still can't get that player. But I guess my point is I just don't believe the draft gurus. I don't think he's the 40th best player in this draft. Like, I don't think that. If I got coaches saying, oh, yeah, he's better than Kwity Paye, and TD is just gaga over him, he, as a pass rusher, is not lasting, I don't think. He's not lasting until the 22nd pick, and he's not going to be on these boards at 40. I mean, he's probably more around 15 on boards. And this is where I just feel like the draft gurus, I think we're going to see some just jaw droppers, and not just from the stupid teams this year. Like, not just from the Raiders and the Jets and Washington and Jacksonville, and like, because obviously the Jets and Jacksonville have pretty obvious picks this year. But I think we're going to see some jaw droppers from some regular teams too. And then again, who are we to be sitting here saying somebody stupid? Titans drafted Isaiah Wilson in the first round last year. So, again, I try to, TD has his heart set, I believe, on Ojulari. I just don't think there's any way Ojulari's there at 22. Trevor Maddich, ESPN college football analyst, will join us coming up next. What does Trevor think of Mike Tannenbaum's mock draft? We'll get that, and Eric Stokes, the corner, any of the guys that we like for the Titans going to be there at 22? That's coming up next. Let me tell you about my friends at TriStar Moving. They deliver this show. We absolutely love TriStar Moving. They take great care of us, and I promise you, TriStar Moving, if you move with them, will take great care of you. At TriStar Moving, you'll get 5-star service throughout the entire process. That's why their motto is TriStar Moving with 5-star service. I have had so many friends reach out to me and say, hey, do those TriStar guys, are they really? Yes. One of my friends has used them twice and is using them again. And no, he doesn't just move all the time, but he's got friends and he's got different homes and whatever. He loves them. I had another friend who told me they were moving and asked me about TriStar. I say, yes, you got to use them. The owners, Garrett and Robert, they're true Nashvillians, and they care about helping this community, not just, helping themselves, but helping you. And that's why they're as great as they are. So if you're looking to move, go to NashvilleMoving.org/radio or call them 615-640-1219 and tell them Jared Stillman sent you. That's TriStar Moving, NashvilleMoving.org/radio, 5% off your entire move if you tell them that I sent you there. My official movers, TriStar Moving. NFL draft season is upon us, literally less than a month away. I believe 23 days to be exact away from the NFL draft, and we've got another mock draft. This Mike Tannenbaum, former general manager, he's got his mock draft out. No Gregory Rousseau. Todd McShay mocked him, the corner out of Northwestern, to the Titans last week. And no, this week, it's Eric Stokes, the corner out of Georgia. All I know is he ran really, really fast at his pro day, which makes me think that he's really, really fast. And some crazy picks, at least according to all the other mock drafts, which who knows if those are crazy or not. In Mike Tannenbaum's mock draft, Trevor Maddich joins us, ESPN college football analyst. So, Trev, I want to start with you specifically with Tannenbaum's mock, because last week it was Gregory Newsome from Todd McShay. Tannenbaum doesn't even have him in the first round. He goes Eric Stokes out of Georgia. I understand the idea that one guy likes another guy more than somebody else. I think you're going to see that with teams in this year's draft, but it feels like it's all over the board. What do you think of Mike Tannenbaum's mock of Eric Stokes to the Titans with the 22nd pick?
I think, Jared, this is one of those, you got to like him. There's a lot to like about him, but there's a few things to not like about him, and clearly Mike Tannenbaum is okay with the things that he doesn't like. The upside that you mentioned, he's super fast. Stokes is just really, he's one of the fastest players in the entire draft. And in this last year, he was really a playmaker. He had 2 pick sixes. He had a couple of sacks. One of them was a sack fumble that a teammate returned for a touchdown. And he blocked the punt, recovered it, and returned it for a touchdown. So you look at those things and you see him as a playmaker, right? But the downside to Stokes, and the reason that most people don't have him in the first round, I think he's a solid second-round pick. But the downside is that he's real narrow in the hips and legs. He's pretty skinny. He is not a real good run defender. And a lot of teams are going to figure that out quickly and run right at him, make him do what he does the least well. You see a lot of backs and big receivers run through his tackles, and that's an issue. And so also he's kind of a work in progress just because he didn't start playing corner until his senior year in high school. So he doesn't have a whole lot of experience with his eyes recognizing what he's seeing. So could he be good? Could he be a first-round talent? Yeah, overall. But I think most people don't have him graded that high. I think second round, Mel Kiper doesn't even have him in the top 10 of cornerbacks. So it really depends on what you like.
So if you were the Titans and you're sitting there, and again, I think with Janoris Jenkins and Christian Fulton, they want to play man for man on the outside, and I think they want an outside guy to move Fulton back to his natural position inside. Would you go Newsome out of Northwestern at corner? Because it sounds like J.C. Horn out of South Carolina, Patrick Surtain out of Alabama, and Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. Those 3 corners are gone. That the Titans will have no shot at any of those 3. Would you go Newsome, who Todd McShay went with out of Northwestern, or would you go Stokes, who Tannenbaum went with?
I would prefer Newsome. He's got more experience, more games started, more games played at corner. He has shown a lot of polish when it comes to both playing off in the zone and being able to recognize what he sees and break on the ball and playing press man. So he's very scheme versatile. One of those guys that until he learns the nuances of NFL defenses and offenses, you can put Newsome man for man on a slot or an outside receiver and just say, follow that guy around, right? And I think you've got more potential upside with Newsome overall, and I think you certainly have the probability of more production early in his career, certainly early in his rookie season with Newsome. Now, there's a couple things with Newsome. Mostly it's injuries. He played all 3 of his years at Northwestern, but he missed several games all 3 of those years with various injuries. So you have to feel confident in his ability to hold up. But part of the reason he gets banged up is that he is really, this is Newsome now, he is a very willing tackler. This guy will fly up and throw his body into tackles, whether it's a short pass or whether it's the running game. So, if you back him off of that a little bit while you get his weight room strength up to NFL standards, maybe he'll be a little bit more durable. But I would, if I'm the Titans and if Newsome and Stokes were available, I would take Newsome and not look back.
Trevor Maddich is our guest, brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, you're John Robinson. You're sitting on the clock at 22. Newsome is still on the board. Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver at Florida, is still on the board. Azeez Ojulari, Jalen Phillips, Kwity Paye, all those pass rushers are still on the board. What are you picking?
I'm taking Newsom. I'm taking Newsom because of the synergy with what they brought in free agency on the defensive line and the pass rush with Autry and Dupree. The thing is, part of the problem with the secondary last year with the third down defense is that the Titans pass rushers allowed the quarterbacks to hold the ball a beat longer than the secondary really could do, could cover very well. So now they've got better guys rushing the passer, so that helps the secondary. But now if you improve the secondary, you allow those pass rushers an extra beat to get to the quarterback, because now you've got one of those outlets that the quarterback is looking to check down to is well covered. And if he just pauses a beat, that allows for more sacks. And remember this is important, because it's kind of the underlying fundamental when you look at defense at all in the NFL. I mean, you have to stop the run. I get that part. But turnovers are everything. It's the most important single stat on defense, takeaways. And most of your takeaways come by pressuring the quarterback. You either strip the ball from him or you make him throw before he wants to or off schedule or you bump him as he throws and you get an interception, that kind of thing. And so the combination of an improved pass rush, I'd be stunned if the pass rush for the Titans were dramatically better this year. You combine that with a guy like Newsom who can come in and at least I think, would be able to be a very reliable cover corner to allow them a good third corner to be able to do stuff to take away outlets. I think that combination plays off of one another, the coverage and the rush. And so if I'm Robinson, I'm looking to not just get a guy who's really good. I'm looking for the guy that can make more other people better as well.
Trevor Matich is our guest. Well, I talked to a college coach. Guy you know, won't tell you who, but a guy that you would trust, a guy that I trust, a guy that the audience would trust. And he's got Big Ten experience, he's got SEC experience, he's got ACC experience. And I said, okay, if you had to pick between Kwity Paye out of Michigan, Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia, and Jalen Phillips and Gregory Rousseau out of Miami, who would you pick? And he sent back in all caps, Phillips. Then he said, I like Ojulari a lot, would definitely take him second. Rousseau, nah. And he says that he thinks Kwity Paye out of Michigan is overrated. What do you think of that?
Yeah, let's start with Rousseau. Rousseau out of Miami had one massive season in 2019. Then he got hurt the year before, and then he opted out for 2020 because of COVID. So that one big year, right? He had more sacks than anybody in the nation in 2019, except for Chase Young of Ohio State, who went second in the draft, and he lit up the NFL his rookie year last year. So does that mean that he is a phenomenal pass rusher? Well, he's got the ability to develop into a very good pass rusher. He's very tall. He's 6'7", and so he's got those long arms. That's really good. But when you watch him on tape, he kind of disappears when he rushes off the edge, which is really what the Titans need. Where he got a lot of his sacks was rushing over the center. And so he used all that length to be able to get his hand behind the center as the center was trying to snap the ball and be able to get through. So inside is where he got a lot of his work done in 2019. This is Rousseau now. And I think that in the NFL, he's not going to be in there. They're not going to put him inside very much. He'll just get blasted out of there. So I think he's a good developmental pass rushing prospect. I think Ojulari, I love Ojulari in a lot of ways. But I think that, it's possible to take this guy too high. Anybody can take too high. But the thing about Ojulari is that, man, when he is chasing that ball down, he's phenomenal. But he's not real big. And so when it comes to setting the edge and things like that, there's a question as to whether he can hold up, play in and play out in the NFL. When it comes to pass rush, he's really fluid. He's super explosive, doesn't have a whole lot of moves. And when you get your hands on him as a blocker, you can shut him down. So he's another guy that has tremendous traits that you can't coach. But from a standpoint of what skills he's developed from that talent, he still has a little ways to go. I like him, and I think he'd be great on the Titans. But I think he's a guy that his potential requires a bit more development. I'm thinking Phillips. I agree with the coach that you talked to. Absolutely agree with the coach you talked to. He's got really good first pass rush moves, right? So what he does first is really good. He's very fluid. When he gets to the top of the rush, he's able to avoid the punch of that tackle by shifting his body around or by slapping it down. He's hard to get your hands on, right? and he's just incredibly productive. I think at the point of attack, he'll be fine against the run, which is kind of important, so you can play him more downs. But overall, he's a guy that really needs a go-to counter move on the pass rush in order to be a very, very good pass rusher with a chance to become elite. And those are the kinds of things that he didn't need in college because the first move worked so much. So I think he'll be able to learn some of those moves. And if I were to choose between the players that you just talked about, especially with an eye towards a guy who could give me production right now, I would go with Phillips among that group.
Trevor Maddich is our guest, ESPN college football analyst. Coming up next, some of the new takes that we're seeing develop out of some of these mock drafts. And not only that, but what about the Sam Darnold Carolina trade? How would it affect the draft? And I've got a theory for Trevor that I want to get his opinion on, and we will do that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Trevor Maddich, brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. When experience matters, Stillman and Companies, delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025, The Game. Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving NFL Draft. I can't tell you what we're doing for the draft. I can't. I'm just telling you that if you are a real longtime Titan fan, our draft show will be perfect for you. And if you're a new Titan fan, our draft show will be perfect for you. I cannot tell you what we're doing, but I cannot wait to tell the people. Trevor Maddux is with us, ESPN college football analyst. So, Trev, before I get to my take for you of the Sam Darnold trade, I do want your opinion on it. When you saw that yesterday, what did you think for both teams?
I hate it for the Jets. I hate it. I thought that Sam Darnold didn't have a chance to succeed there in his first 3 years. And I think he's got all the talent that they expected him to have when they drafted him so high a few years ago. But I think he needed a different team. The Jets were the wrong team for him at the time. Well, the Jets are rounding into the right team for him now. I mean, he's a guy that now has a bit of an offensive line in front of him. They're starting to get a few receivers for him to throw to. And he went through the darkest days that quarterbacks can go through, just losing over and over again, a turnover machine, because he kept trying to do things that his teammates around him weren't able to help him with. So he was pressing to try to do more than he should have tried to do, and he gets the blame for that. He was just trying to win football games, for goodness sake. Well, I think now with a new coaching staff, I think now with the offensive line and starting to get him more weapons, I think that he has a chance to flourish going forward. Now, if they kept him, they would have had that second pick in the draft. And, they would have, if they would have kept him, they would have had that second pick for a position player instead of for a quarterback to replace him. And with the second pick, I get it that they picked up some picks. I mean, they got a 6th-round pick this year and then a 2nd and a 4th next year. But the second pick in the draft should be an absolute difference maker. Think again, Chase Young at Washington. Well, now that difference maker is going to be a replacement for Sam Darnold that may or may not be as good as Sam Darnold would have been. So I just don't like this for the Jets.
So here's my take on it, and I agree with you. I don't like it for the Jets, but I don't like it for a different reason. If I were the Jets, I would have traded. I value the 2nd overall pick more than I value what Darnold got, which is a 6, a 2, and a 4. I would have traded the 2nd overall pick. We already saw what the going rate for the 3rd overall pick was. You're going to get even more because that's the Zach Wilson pick. Well, whatever team, probably Carolina, whatever team moves up to 2 to get Zach Wilson, they're at least giving you 3 first-round picks plus probably something good like add a 2nd or add a player, maybe Christian McCaffrey, right? Like you get 2 seconds, you get 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and McCaffrey in order to move out of number 2. Well, then you're going to really get to find out whether or not Sam Darnold can play. If Darnold can't play, you'll get a high pick next year, plus the team that you dealt the pick to for Zach Wilson, because they'll be starting a rookie quarterback, they'll have a high pick next year too. So you'll get more picks, and if you really want to start over, now you got picks on picks on picks to start over with a new quarterback. If Darnold's the guy and you're not any good this year, then the coach isn't going to get any blame. The general manager isn't going to get any blame. They're going to blame Darnold, move on, go get the next guy. I think that, to me, if Darnold is the guy, then you've got all these picks now to build your roster around Sam Darnold, and you've got the potential to have a great team. I think the Jets so blew this, and the only way they didn't is if Zach Wilson is Patrick Mahomes. That's the only way they didn't blow this trade, in my opinion, Trev.
Yep, I think those are great points that you make, Jared. Absolutely great points. And they do have a lot of other positions that they need to fill out talent with. So having those extra picks would be huge. And the draft capital that they would have by trading down, if somebody, they have to have a trading partner, but if they do, then all of a sudden you've got the Jets could have a quantum leap ahead in just one draft. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And the thing that I think that the Jets, the biggest risk that they have here is that the quarterback that they take will be clearly better than Darnold. Everybody's saying that it'll be Zach Wilson out of BYU. But let's go down the quarterbacks, right? Let's go down. And with a mind that first-round quarterbacks, high first-round quarterbacks, are a bit of a roll of the dice, aren't they? Right? I mean, it could be some years it's 50-50. First-round quarterbacks, whether they can bust a grape or not. Other years it's better than that. But the Jets are assuming that if it is Wilson, that he can do more than Darnold. And so let's look at Wilson. Wilson, I think, has all the talent to be the second pick in the draft, all the talent. But if you're the Jets, you got to worry about durability. He only had 1 year when he was healthy. That's it. And that was his past year in 2020. He was hurt his first 2 years. So you got to worry about that. You got to worry about all these quarterbacks. What can they do? I think the quarterback with the least to worry about, the most predictable potential to get his talent onto the field fully is Mac Jones of Alabama. I think the other guys that are projected to go in the first round have some real question marks. And so the Jets are assuming that Wilson's going to be better, that Wilson's going to be healthy. He might be. He might not be. And so now there is one thing, though, that does make this make sense for the Jets, and that is the salary cap.
Sure.
Because all of a sudden, this year they would have to pay the cap hit for Sam Darnold would have been about $10 million. Next year, probably about $19 million. Then from there, 23 next year, yeah. And then it goes up from there, right? If they re-sign it, because that's the fifth year that they would have to have dealt with his contract, right? Well, they start the clock over again at zero with a draftee at quarterback at number 2 this year, and there's something to be said for that. So what they need to do is they need to maximize the potential of the team in the rookie contract of the quarterback that they take at number 2, or else I think this thing will not have worked out. So it's not just a matter of can that guy play or can he stay healthy. It's a matter of also can they get to the Super Bowl or can they make deep runs towards the Super Bowl before that quarterback's rookie contract is up, because otherwise they're right back where they were with Sam Darnold.
Trevor Maddox is our guest. Caroline brought up yesterday that Todd McShay has Trevor Lawrence as the only Tier 1 player in this draft, period, regardless of position. I think that's nuts. I think Jamar Chase is every bit a Tier 1 player out of LSU. I think you make the argument Kyle Pitts is a Tier 1 player. You know the offensive lineman Penei Sewell better than I do. I do think Trevor Lawrence should go number 1. I don't think that Trevor Lawrence, just total talent-wise, is in a stratosphere all by himself. Your thoughts?
No, I don't think so. And by the way, I don't think he is as slam dunk as everybody says that he is. We've talked about this before, that one glaring gap in his game on tape is accuracy throwing the ball deep down the field. He's really average in his completion percentage. Even when you go back to 2019, when he had T. Higgins and Justin Ross catching the ball for him, he'd throw the ball on the wrong side of those guys a lot. It's poorly thrown, and they go up and get it. So it looks fantastic on the box score, but really it wasn't that great of a throw. And his completion percentage wasn't that great anyway, about 38, 40%, something like that over the last 2 years, throwing the ball down the field. So I'm not saying he can't do it, but I'm saying that other college quarterbacks did it a lot better than he did over the last 2 years. So, but is he the only guy you would put up there in Tier 1? And I agree with you. I think it's absolutely nuts to have him the only one up there. I agree with you about Jamar Chase. He's better than the Heisman Trophy winners in NFL prospect. I think Devontae Smith. I think Penei Sewell, tackle out of Oregon, is a difference maker, should be Tier 1. Kyle Pitts may be the most talented individual football player in this entire draft. He's a tight end out of Florida. The biggest matchup problem on either side of the ball in this entire draft, and he's Tier 2. See, these are things I disagree with. Now, in fairness to Todd, it's hard to go up there and lay out what you think and then have everybody else come in behind and nitpick you. I get that part of it. But that's our job, right? And I completely disagree with them to have Trevor Lawrence be the only guy in that tier, especially because Trevor Lawrence, he ain't perfect.
How crazy does it drive you when you see Penei Sewell, some of these mock drafts have him in the teens or, after the 10th pick in the draft?
Yeah, that to me is kind of nuts. But in some ways, I do see kind of the point. And that is this. You're going to have probably 5 quarterbacks, taken in the first 10, right? And then you've got actual, honest-to-goodness difference makers at receiver in Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts. Devontae Smith, I think, is going to be a really good NFL receiver. Jalen Waddle might be the best of all of them. I think Jalen Waddle would have won the Heisman out of Alabama over Devontae Smith last year had Waddle not injured his ankle. Because there's more stuff that he can do, and he's a little bit thicker, and he's faster. So, I think that Waddle's really good too. But I think if you're looking for a difference maker and you see a skill player that can do stuff with the ball in his hands that you're not going to see unless you draft in the top 5 or 8, then I can see you grabbing that guy over an offensive lineman. I get that. But at the same time, everybody else on your team is better when you have a generational left tackle. And so, to me, I just think it's a bit short-sighted.
Trevor Maddich, ESPN college football analyst. Trev, we only got like one more draft talk or 2 more draft talks or however many more draft talks. We only got a couple more draft talks before the big day. It's like a wedding. You know, we just talk, and then the day's going to come, and then we'll all be sad after it's over. Always good to talk to you, Trev.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, Trevor Maddich, ESPN college football analyst, brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Caroline Fenton, let me ask you this question. Do you agree with Trev that Kyle Pitts might be the best overall player in this draft?
I would say that there is very much so an argument that can be made because Kyle Pitts can play 2 really key roles. He can block, he can be a tight end, he can be up there and making serious blocks, and he also can be utilized as a wide receiver. I mean, you look at Kadarius Toney, who may be one of the best wide receivers in this draft. I don't know the exact numbers, but I am very willing to bet that Kyle Pitts had way more targets than Kadarius Toney did. So I think that he brings 2 very, very key components to the draft. So yeah, in terms of his value, I could say that he is one of the best players in this draft.
Okay, let's just pick the 5 best players in the draft right now. Let's just draft it out. So I'll get the first pick, you get the second pick, I go Jamar Chase, LSU.
I take Trevor Lawrence.
Okay, then I'll take Kyle Pitts.
Penei Sewell.
Devontae Smith. You see, okay. So there's all these quarterbacks that are going, right?
Right.
And here we are picking 5, and we pick 1 quarterback. And I was torn between Chase or Lawrence. So, and I guess their like positional value maybe wins, but I mean, that's this draft, man. I got to tell you, people are getting fired over this draft. Hal Gill will join us coming up next. We will, hey, you know what? Hal's going to be mad at me. I'm preemptively mad at Hal because he's going to be mad at me.
Why is he going to be mad at you?
Because I said I don't care about all the players on the team. It's all about the goalie. And he's not going to, I can tell you right now, he's not going to agree with me.
Well, then you better be ready to defend yourself.
Oh, I will. Don't worry about that. But he will join us coming up next here on Stillman and Company. ESPN 102.5 The Game and T-Mobile have teamed up to give away a hockey home gating party. Text the word GAME right now to 615-737-1025 for your chance to win a Dos Equis prize pack, which includes a case of beer, dessert from Nothing Bundt Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. You must be 21 or older to enter. Hal Gill next, Stillman and Company. We're delivered by TriStar Moving. Caroline's here. Ian's here. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving. Caroline's here with us. Hal Gill in just 1 second. First, though, go to the 1025 The Game Twitter page. Have you seen Chase swinging a baseball bat?
I replied to that tweet and I said, this is peak male performance. Because, I mean, look at that athleticism. The pants. We don't talk enough about the pants.
Is he wearing sweatpants? I mean, he's not wearing baseball pants.
I think they might be baseball pants.
I mean, he came to play. So everybody gets to go take batting practice at the Sounds. Robbie, Ryan, Joe, Darren, Chase.
We didn't get
not
invited.
Jared. Yeah.
We didn't get
not
invited.
us. No, not us. The only thing worse, less athletic than Chase swinging this bat, and I'll give Chase credit because he'll swing it next time they let him to. Not going to be deterred by us making fun of him, but him with the sledgehammer and that was an all-timer. And I think the best sledgehammer as far as the Preds the Preds car is concerned is Hal Gill, and he joins us now. Presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belmead and TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Hal, I have a take for you today. If you want to start with that, or I can ask you a generic question about what do you think about how the Preds are doing. Which one would you like?
Why don't you just step aside and I'll talk to Caroline?
Well, I mean, I think I want to talk about my take. I know it's selfish. selfish.
You can't let it go.
I can't.
Today,
no wonder everyone on Twitter was saying, oh, this poor girl, she's never going to get a word in. I guess
was the first one.
It's coming to fruition.
Hal was the first one.
It's nice to have you with the station. Thanks for coming, and God bless you for going through this every day.
Oh, thank you.
There is a lot of truth to that, and I do stand by him in wishing you luck and everybody else.
Oh, thank you so much.
Let me say this, Hal. I look at this Preds team right now, and I use Saturday's game as an example, and I'll even use Thursday's game. And John Hines said, hey, they were drained after everything they've been through. It was good to have a couple days off before Detroit. But I look at this team, and to me, they're the same team that was losing early in the year, except that they went from, I would say average to below average goaltending, where both guys just weren't there yet, to superstar goaltending from both guys. And I'll throw Tolvanen in there as kind of what seems like an elite goal scorer. I mean, to me, this is all about those two guys. And I don't even know I don't even think they're really helping those two guys out much. I think those two guys, Saros and Rene, are just playing their butts off. I mean, I go back to those games early when they started this, 40 save nights against Florida and Tampa, both of them. Hal, I know we talk about this guy doing this, that guy doing that, this guy out of the lineup, that guy into the lineup. I think it is all about the way these two guys are playing. And it kind of discourages me a little bit because it's like, how are the Preds going to do? Tell me how the goalie does. What do you think?
Well, here's the thing: they've had some great goaltending, but you have to put it all together. You're saying, okay, just because they get shutouts, it means the goaltending is awesome. I think the defense has been so much better. I think the penalty kill has been really solid. And so I think I'm guessing you could ask Juice and Tex, and they both tell you it's a lot easier to play in front of a team that's playing some good defense in front of you. So they're getting great performances. I think there was a few that the goalies stole, but you need goalies to steal games. That's just the way the NHL works. You're not going to be on sometimes, and you need a goalie to step up and save your bacon. But I really think as well as Juice is playing right now, I think the team is playing really well in front of them. And I go back to that game, last game, you look at Chicago, they had the 5-on-3. They really didn't get a great chance. They had the one-timers from DeBrincat, and Saros knows exactly where those are coming from. And so he can anticipate that, and he's able to make big saves. I mean, if you're going to kill a 5-on-3 at some point, you need big saves. And so I think they're predicting where the shots are coming from. They're not leaving their goalies high and dry, and then you're getting timely saves. So I think it's a combination of both. I think if you look at one without the other, then you're kind of missing the boat.
Are you a believer that Saros is a slow starter? Because I remember the President's Trophy year where, that year before when they went to the Cup final, he was so up and down early in the year, on the roster, off the roster, to keep him protected from that expansion draft with Vegas. The next year was his first year as the true backup, and he didn't win a lot of games early that year and then really rounded into form at the end of the season. And it kind of feels that way. And a texter brought something up today that kind of popped into my head where, the Arizona series last year, that's like starting a season for UC Saros. I think there's probably something to this that he heats up as the year goes on, and we're seeing him heat it up.
Yeah, I think he gets into a rhythm. I think his movements, he's a smaller goalie, so I feel like he depends a lot on confidence and confidence in his movements. If he's a little bit rattled, then, it can throw him way off. And he doesn't get rattled all that often. And I feel like he's confident. And I think it's kind of early in his career to decide whether he's a slow starter or what he is, because he's been every time he's come into a season, he's looking at a battle with Rene. Sometimes I'm the backup and I want to try to steal time from Pex. Sometimes I might be the starter, but I still got to hold Pex off and play well enough. So I don't think he's really gotten into all right, you're our guy all the way through, go out there and play. So I think it's kind of unfair to decide whether he's a slow starter or not. I think he's certainly playing really well right now and confident. And I think that comes from getting a couple wins. And like I said, as a goalie, if you steal a game, you get that confidence and then you can roll with it and the team has confidence in you, and it kind of goes both ways.
Hal Gill with us, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belmead and TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. I think that if Saros plays this well, like I'm trying to couch my expectation. If he plays this well, I think he can steal a couple of games from Tampa if they were to play in the playoffs. I don't think he can steal 4. And so the question then has to be, can they win one game? Like, can they beat Tampa one game where the goalie doesn't steal it and then get lucky in another game and somehow get past Tampa before we even talk about who else they'd have to play after that?
You're just on the same train track, aren't you, Jared? I'm trying to tell you that if the team plays well defensively the way they are right now, I think Saros is good enough to make timely saves and help the team to win. I do think he can steal games. I do believe that, but I think it's more about the way the team is playing in front of him. It's a little more predictable, and he's able to track those saves. I think I think it goes. I'm trying to tell you this. It's both ways. The team plays well, goaltending plays. You can win multiple games when you put it all together.
So I would agree with that last part. I would also say that I don't completely agree with that as to why it's the Preds'
Of course
success.
you don't.
I know, but instead of getting confrontational about it, I just move on to the next thing. So,
really, you're going to move on?
Well, I mean, last time we yelled at each other for 30 minutes, and I think people liked it. But I don't want to yell for 30 minutes. That's a long time.
It's okay, Jared. I taught you something, and you can say, "Wow, I learned something," and now I can go on with my day.
Well,
we
argued for 30 minutes, and then about me wanting to sell the team, and then they won 5 in a row. So, I mean, I think there's probably a lot there. But that does segue to my next thing, which is I would like, if the rumors are true, and Toronto is just fancy for Mikael Granlund to the tune of a second-round pick, I will go pack his bags. I will wear a double mask, gloves, everything, and I will go pack his I will send TriStar Moving over to pack his bags for him. And yet, I don't think that's the direction this team's going. I think David is sticking with what he's got. I don't think he's buying anything new. I don't think he's selling anything new. My question for you is, would it be a gut punch to the locker room after everything they've done if Granlund, Haula, Cousins, or even a surprise player like a Yarncroke or a Grimaldi or somebody is not here a week from today?
Well, I think it depends on what you're getting back. I think, sometimes trades happen, and, guys aren't stupid. They look around the locker room and go, there's no way you can say no to that. And they understand it might be their best friend that gets traded, but they'll look at it and go, hey, good luck to him. If it is Toronto, you say, well, he's going to a pretty good team and it's a pretty good haul, and you deal with it. But yeah, I do think anytime, you get to be real close with, you've probably never been on a team, Jared, so you don't know that you get to be close with your teammates, and you don't want to see anyone leave. You want to stick it out and ride it out. So yeah, it's always a gut punch anytime you lose someone, but it's also part of the business that David Poile has to handle. If David Poile makes an honest move to make this team better either now or down the stretch, then most guys in the locker rooms are going to say, hey, that's a business, and that move needed to be made.
If you were David, how much, and this is honest, just you, not what you think David will do, but if you were in his position, how much stock would you put into Saturday night against Tampa when kind of sizing your group up against them and knowing that you've got 48 hours at that point, even less than that, to decide really what direction you're going to go in? I know it's one game on a Saturday night, but it's the only game you've got against that level of competition. How much would you use that game to size up what you want to do?
I think at every turn, I think David Poile is looking at his team and trying to make this decision. And he's not doing his job if he's not. So he might look at a practice and say, I just don't feel it for this team. He might look at a practice and say, I love this team. And especially if you're playing against a team like Tampa, if they go out and really play a solid game, that goes a long way with his decisions. And if they go out and lay an egg, then, it's a measuring stick. But it's also, tonight, they're playing against Detroit. If they go out and underperform, it's the same thing. He's looking at every bit of information he can and trying to process it to make the best decision because, especially if there's big deals on the table. If you talk about getting a good take for one of his players, that makes all these games that much more important. So these are tough decisions. He's weighing everything. I'm sure he's talking to the coaches, talking to players, getting a feel for where they're at. But yeah, I agree with you that, there it is. I agree with you that Tampa is going to be a big one.
Hal Gill, as always, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location, Belmead, TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Hal, we'll talk next week after the deadline.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yep.
Nice talking
Hal
with
Gill,
you, Caroline. Sorry you didn't get to talk.
Hal
Maybe
Gill,
some
as
other time.
always. Hal, we got to get you out of here because we got to get to Caroline's segment, which that's what the people want to hear. Hal Gill joining us. It's time now for Caroline's.
Get in on the action. Put the money on the mahogany. What's on tap on the sports books? It's time to break it all down with Caroline's. Here on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
So we're going to have to go quickly on this. So we're going to have to argue about how we essentially tied last night. And we enter phase 2.
So, yeah, last night was kind of difficult, but we'll call it even.
Ish.
Well, okay.
You got the basketball game. I didn't. So that's...
Right. So tonight we've got a lot going on, a lot of baseball, a lot of hockey. So Stars Blackhawks, it's a big game for the NHL Central. Stars money line. Blackhawks are 1-4 in their last 5. I like the Stars better. Lakers are...
let me get mine in there.
Okay, all right, go. All you.
Stars money line.
Wow, we agree on something.
Yep.
That's really sweet of us. Lakers are LeBron and AD list. They're playing the Raptors tonight. Raptors, I believe.
Don't they suck?
The Raptors?
Yes.
Well, the Lakers suck without LeBron and AD. So it's just kind of like who sucks less kind of situation.
Like when the Browns play the Bengals.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think Raptors are plus 1.5 right now. Take that. I like that. Lakers.
Hey, give me the Lakers. Who's on that team without LeBron and AD on it?
You got Kuz. You got.
I've never been a big fan of his.
Well, that's your team now.
Well, I picked them tonight. I'm an Orlando Magic fan. I just like to state that for the record.
Well, you're a Lakers fan tonight. And I would also like to say for the record that I thought that the Nats were absolutely going to blow the Braves out of the water. I'm a big Max Scherzer girl. That didn't happen. So,
Ronald Acuna Jr., 2 home runs so far already. Braves lead 5-4
first
in the 7th.
pitch he saw against Scherzer. Home run.
Ronald Acuna Jr. is pretty freaking good.
Pretty freaking good. And I thought Max Scherzer was better, but I guess I am wrong. But taking the Raptors tonight. I'm taking the Stars tonight.
Give me the Preds. What is the Preds?
Let's see. I'll pull up the Preds right now.
Put it out there. People are going to be so mad what I'm about to say.
I can't find it.
Give me Detroit money line tonight.
Oh!
Give me Detroit money line. The Preds are too good. They're too hot right now. I've learned when you think they're going to zig, they zag. Every time, the last 5 years, you think they're going to zig, they zag. You think they're going to beat Winnipeg, they lose. You think they're going to lose to Winnipeg, they win. You think they're going to beat Dallas, home game 5, they lose. Where every time you think that this team stinks, the season's over, they go out there, win 10 in a row. You feel like, oh, Detroit, Tuesday night, they're going to take care of business. Give me the Red Wings money line. Are the Preds favored?
Preds are favored -1.5. I'll take Red Wings +1.5. I think Preds are going to win, but I don't think it's going to be by 2 goals.
So you're taking Preds money line?
I'm taking Red Wings +1.5.
Oh, my God. What a cop-out bet. Oh, my goodness. Carolines, as always. Predators game day coming up next. We'll have the breakdown there. FanDuel Sportsbook app, my official sportsbook app. Great segue from Carolines. I'm so excited that baseball is back. There's nothing like watching a game with great weather, a cool drink, watching Chase McCabe swing the bat, and a little action on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. If you've never bet on baseball before, now is the perfect time to give it a shot. FanDuel is letting new users swing for the fences risk-free. You'll get up to $1,000 back if your first bet doesn't win, and once you have an account, you get up to $25 back each day if your same-game parlay bet falls one leg short. This way, you can combine multiple baseball bets for an even bigger win all season long. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and use my promo code JGM so they know that I sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code JGM, 21 and older, present in Tennessee, first online real money wager only for risk-free bet. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. Gambling problem? Call Tennessee Redline, 1-800-889-9789.
Smashville.
Deflects back for Duchesne. His shot stop and the score!
What are the keys to victory tonight? What's being said in the locker room? Where do the Preds reside in the Central Division standings? Jared Stillman has the latest now. With Preds Game Day on Stillman and Company. Brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. This is Smashville's best sports talk. ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company Preds Game Day presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. The Predators sit in 4th place of the Discover NHL Central Division, 41 points, 2 up on Chicago, who's got Dallas tonight. One of those teams is going to win. Hopefully it's not in overtime, but a Preds win today, and you stay in 4th place against the Detroit Red Wings tonight at 6:30. Caroline Fenton, what are you looking for?
We said earlier that if the Preds are going to steal a playoff series away from Tampa Bay or Carolina or whoever it may be, then we're going to have to see more than just UC Saros. So I'm going to be looking at those other aspects of the defense to see how they are going to be helping out UC Saros.
Oh, I like it. I like it. I'm on the Tolvanen train right now. I want to see him play every day. That's all I'm concerned about is how he plays, and I'll go the other way. I'll say, let's see if Saros can keep pumping out shutouts because, hey, if the other team can't score, I feel pretty good about your chances. Caroline, good second show.
Thank you very much.
That's going to do it for us. Predators pregame. Darren McFarland is next. 6:30 puck drop with the voice of the Nashville Predators, Pete Weber. We'll see you tomorrow at 2.